Good evening and welcome to the August 23rd, 2021 school board meeting. I call this meeting to order. Will we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chairman Gualumi will be participating via conference call. The meeting will follow RSA 91-A:2, which states all parties must I can't even talk. Be able to hear or speak to each other. The meeting should be audible to the public. All persons present must be identified, and all votes must be taken by a roll call vote. Chairman Gualumi, why is your attendance not reasonable and practical?
I am in the process of bringing my son to college in Michigan.
Okay, so where are you located?
I'm in Holland, Michigan.
And are you in the presence of anyone?
I am not.
Okay, and so now we need to vote on this. So no, we don't have to vote.
No,
that,
you're
no.
allowed that.
Okay, all right, I thought we had to vote that she was. So now we're going to move on to public participation. And welcome everyone. The board deeply appreciates your desire to have input and to be heard in this meeting. The ground rules for speaking tonight are you must live in Merrimack. We're asking each speaker to say their name and address. We're limiting comments to 3 minutes because of the amount of people here who have a desire to speak. When it comes close to that time, we will give a blinker before the turn. We're asking everyone to read the visitor orientation to meetings, if you could, just to find the guidelines. And, finally, on a personal note, I know Merrimack is a wonderful, kind, respectful town. And we're all ultimately here for all the same purpose and reasons. So I deeply appreciate everyone's core values of respect, responsibility, and courage as you come forward tonight to speak on your child's behalf or on your behalf. So, public participation. Hello.
Hello, I am Laura Zerlanka. I'm on 17 Pilgrim. So, greetings, hello. The irony, I just want to say, does not escape me at the fact that a lot of maskers aren't comfortable coming here and attending, which is why you're seeing probably not a lot of maskers. I myself will be leaving after this because I am not comfortable with this many people. So, onward to my shorter statement. Good evening. I am here today to address the need for masks in schools. My youngest daughter is 18 months old and was born with a kidney disorder. We are fortunate in that her quality of life has been high, and she is one of the happiest babies and toddlers I have been graced to know. She is, however, under anesthesia 2 to 3 times a year and will have had multiple stays in hospital for surgery well before toddlerhood ends. We are now learning that COVID can cause long-lasting kidney injury to those who have contracted it. And for someone like my daughter, those results are catastrophic. The reason this is relevant to the meeting today is that my 4-year-old and 5-year-old daughter and son will hopefully be attending JMS right next door. With a new variant affecting children now, and without classmates and teachers wearing masks, I can't send them and would be forced to choose homeschooling instead. I would love to have good faith that hand washing will be enough, but we can see through contract tracing and studies that it isn't, and in fact, my mask protects you while your mask protects me. A fact that has been known by surgeons, dentists, and medical professionals well throughout the years to protect their patients. I know that educating with masks is difficult. It adds another literal layer onto an already difficult job that has so many nuances and obstacles even prior to a pandemic. I am a mental health counselor with over a decade of experience. What I also know is that children are far more adaptive than we are, and while this may not be fun, kids tend to be pretty tolerant and accepting, particularly when it comes to helping others. People inherently want to be good. I know this is a fierce debate, but I ask that we think outside ourselves and decide what is best for our teachers, our children, and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Okay.
Hi, Rebecca Worst, 12 Kramer Hill Road. I'm the mother of two children, one that will be in 5th grade at JMU's and the other that will be in 2nd grade at Thornton's Ferry. I think it's about time that we stop, start looking at the cost-benefit analysis of masks. Yes, children are adaptable, but I've witnessed my 7-year-old going through and struggling in school and being depressed every day and not being able to get the academics he needs because he's wearing a mask. And it's not protecting him. My family got COVID at Elliott Hospital when they had the operating room had an outbreak. That's how we got COVID. They were wearing surgical masks. Cloth masks, surgical masks don't protect. Get a mask expert in here, not a doctor, not the government, a mask expert to give you the information you need on what will protect you. Our kids deserve better. They are falling behind educationally, and that needs to stop. Let's not create fear mongering amongst everyone. Let our children rise up and be the best they can be. And I really hope that we can move forward without masks for my kids' benefits and everybody else's. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just remind everyone to turn off their cell phones just in case they're on? Thank you. I forgot to do that.
I'm short. I'm Jennifer Monroy. Oh, I can tilt it? Okay. I live at 40 Lamson Drive. I am a registered nurse. I worked on a COVID unit for over a year. Right now I work in pediatrics. Today alone, we had a 1-month-old, a 3-month-old, and a 2-year-old positive. I've had to send kids to the emergency room. We've had kids intubated and airlifted from other hospitals. I have a child who is 5 years old with a critical medical condition. He has idiopathic autoimmune encephalopathy, which for those that don't know, he has swelling in his brain. Anytime, nope, his is genetic. So anytime that he gets sick, whether it's any cause of increase in blood pressure, fevers, viruses, it cuts off the circulation to his brain and he'll seize. He's been intubated for weeks on a time. He's almost died. I've had to perform CPR on my own child. My child, you know, yes, other kids don't want to wear their mask. Yeah, okay, my kid opts to wear his mask. We all know kids are germy little kids. This protects them when they cough and sneeze. Because when you cough and sneeze, the particles go around. It goes in their eyes, that's how they can get it. This will add a layer of protection. No, it's not 100%, but it protects them. And it's not only, protecting kids against kids. We have teachers and staff members that aren't vaccinated that are now, okay, well, I don't have to wear a mask and they're gonna be around my child. And then, you see them on Facebook and Instagram at concerts without wearing masks and parties and around other people. It's not safe. It's not. And it's not fair to them because, okay, I'll send my kids with masks, but all these other kids around them won't, and then come home and give it to my child who's too young to be vaccinated. And he gets sick and now he could die. On the COVID unit, I performed CPR endless times. I had to watch people be intubated endless times. I wore an N95 mask for 15 to 20 hours at a time. Don't tell me you can't breathe, because I did it. And all the nurses that were on my unit, when COVID started slowing down, quit because of what we went through. And now I work in pediatrics, and now I'm seeing I have a colleague who works with me, call after call after call for COVID symptoms. They're coming back positive. And they're little kids that, it's not their fault. It's the adults around them that should be vaccinated. These other, to me, it's not worth it. When you see it from our side, when you've watched what COVID really does to people, then you'll understand. And until you do, I feel bad for everyone. I feel bad for kids that aren't comfortable wearing masks or, they can't see their teachers talking. Well, they make clear masks. They wear the shield where you can see their lips. We've used them for the elderly people when we had to talk to them.
So, I mean, masks do work. Other districts in the area opened up school, made masks, optional, or they didn't have to. And now those schools are starting to shut down because COVID's rampant.
Okay,
Rochester, New
okay,
Hampshire.
no one can talk in the audience, and.
It's Rochester, New Hampshire.
You're way over, I gave you
Oh,
extra
okay.
time.
So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do your research.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Tebow, and I'm an extremely concerned parent to an incoming 6th grade student at J Muse and a kindergartner that will be experiencing full-day schooling for the first time this year. My children need me to speak up. All of our children deserve better than this. To be clear, we are dealing with a virus that is virtually harmless to children. We have known this from the beginning, and there is zero data to support otherwise. We also now have a widely available vaccine to any and all adults who want it to offer protection against a virus that, as it is, has a 99% survival rate. Kids and even adults touch their masks constantly, therefore contaminating them with bacteria and other viruses, many of which are more harmful to children than COVID-19. While the pore size of an N95 mask is as low as 0.30 micrometers, the size of the COVID-19 virus is less than half of that, at 0.12 micrometers. Studies have also been done to test carbon dioxide levels underneath a mask. The concentrations while not wearing a mask varied from 500 to 900 parts per million, whereas with a mask on, increased to an average of 2,500 parts per million. Concentrations detected in that range can cause symptoms such as fatigue, headache, and loss of concentration, all of which my own children experienced day after day last year, which inhibited their ability to learn, absorb information, and thrive. Lastly, masks are just plain dehumanizing. They erase our facial expressions and discourage communication. Children need to see what other adults and children are feeling. Part of socialization comes from reading people's facial expressions. Children need to see smiles. Kids learning to pronounce words need to see the movements of lips and expression. This rings especially true for my 5-year-old entering kindergarten this year. These types of things are vital for their growth and success in school. Depriving kids of these basic needs is not only unnecessary, but harmful both now and for their futures. I do not want my kids living in a constant state of fear, afraid of the air they breathe, or in this case, are not allowed to breathe. Our children must come first. Let adults protect themselves as they see fit, and let parents decide what's best for their child.
Hi, I'm Nicole Page, 74 Coda Road. Just to the medical community, this shouldn't be an us versus you kind of thing. I get that people are sick. There are treatments. That is my number one question whenever I hear about people getting sick and really sick.
Can you
They're
address
not.
the
Sorry.
school board, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. So basically, what needs to be happening is every time I hear that somebody's sick, the doctor is saying, stay home, stay quarantined, don't do anything. Take Tylenol, take ibuprofen. That's our number one problem here. But I don't really want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is the fact that I get it. I was scared. I have an immunodeficiency back in March of 2020. But what I decided to speak tonight, I really wanted to touch on so many things. I wanted to touch on my aseptic technique training, being in the biopharmaceutical manufacturing industry. I wanted to talk about the things that I've seen within the industry of how they are not prioritizing treatments over the vaccine, which is disturbing. But I can't give details on that. So I would love to spend an entire evening reviewing the documented short-term and potential long-term harm that masks cost, because it's not talked about enough. And I would love to enjoy a discussion about how the top citations listed on the CDC website to support community masking are contradicted just one paragraph later. You have to know about the study, but it's literally black and white contradiction. So you can't make it up. So for many of us, citing the official stance of the government and health organizations is no longer sufficient. Many of us have connected to our own personal experience and have found the recommendations of these organizations to lack common sense. Logic, after all, is faster than science. Asymptomatic spread is not proven. From what I've seen, the data is weak at best, and it goes against everything we fundamentally know about transmitting a virus. My kids were out of childcare for 12 weeks when we decided to put them back in. They went back in full time. I thought for sure they would get sick. But the goal was to flatten the curve so as not to overwhelm the hospitals. It was never to prevent everyone from getting sick. So my then 1 and 5-year-old went back and started spending 40 hours a week in a child care facility that eventually grew back to 300 plus children. Over the winter, a few of the older children opted to wear masks, but no one else did as far as the kids were concerned. And over a year later, not a single case of COVID has spread through the facility. If they can do it with parents entering the facility to drop off and pick up kids, then I have full confidence that Merrimack School District can do the same thing, especially when their student population is essentially a petri dish. So we could go back and forth on the effectiveness all night long. I'm going to skip ahead. But basically, we all did this last year because we wanted things to go back to normal. We wanted to believe that these efforts were going to be a temporary inconvenience, but we should all know better now. We need to stop pretending that there are no unintended consequences to treating healthy children like they are vectors for disease. It's a new school year. It is day 527 of 14 days to slow the spread. SARS-CoV-2 is a respiratory virus. It is transmissible to multiple species. It is not going away. We'll never be able to track down every case in every species and eradicate it. So please don't tell me this is temporary. It's not temporary. The goal, okay. I just want to say one thing about the precedence that it's setting, because the FDA defines a mask as a medical device. So if we allow a school board to tell us that that's okay to put on our children, we're setting a precedent that you guys get to decide medical treatments for our kids. So that was my biggest.
My name is Sheena DeBork, and I live at 89 Belmont Drive. I've been in Merrimack for a couple of years now, and my daughter has just come and is going to be starting 7th grade at the middle school. She was in Exeter, and they had just chosen to make masks optional for parents, and I was at that school board meeting too. So let me start off by saying I am not anti-vax, I am not anti-mask. You do what's best for you, you do what's best for your child. I think that we all should have that option. It is not anyone's place to tell me how to parent my child.
Okay, can we just hold the applause so we can get through this? I really
It's
appreciate
okay,
it.
I can speak over it, thank you.
Okay.
Children are not, generally speaking, at risk from COVID-19. Yes, some are, but most are not. There are psychological, developmental, and social tolls from masking our kids. There is absolutely no data that indicates masking children puts a dent in COVID cases. Therefore, masking children is not only irrational and arbitrary, it is unscientific child abuse. The lockdowns have also turned fear into a virtue. Those who are afraid believe, not all, but a lot, believe that they're better people than those who are not, and they will subconsciously look for ways to multiply fear because it's become a virtue. I don't know what you have to do to allow our children to go back to school with parents deciding whether or not for the kids to wear masks, but it must be done. I do not want my daughter's mental health affected, nor that of the other children in Merrimack. Just a few stats. About a month ago, some Boston-based doctors wrote in the Washington Post that hospitalizations are a more accurate and more reliable way to measure the data than cases. So right now in New Hampshire, there's 82 current hospitalizations out of 1,372,000. That is 0.00006%. Influenza deaths for those 18 and under in the US, this is all per the CDC. 2017 to 2018, 743 children died. In 2018 to 19, it was 477 children, and in 2019 to 2020, it was 434. For the 18 months of COVID in the US, there have been no deaths in anyone under 18 that did not have underlying conditions. Yes, we know some, unfortunately, people did die, but there's no underlying conditions. There were no deaths over the last 18 months. So let's follow the facts. Real quick, please give parents some respect, be supportive, not divisive, be inclusive but not tyrannical, and stay in your lane. They are not your children, they are ours, and you do not have the right to make medical decisions for my child.
Hi, Taryn Swenson, 38 Marty Drive. I'm here because when I looked at your deck that you put out, I cannot even tell you how deeply discouraged I am that you guys are the voices and at the helm of the ship that is leading our children. I'm here as a voice for my kids because I cannot believe a year and a half later you are going to force them to cover their faces and not experience childhood and education as it is meant to be, and for what? What data do you have that drives these decisions? Zero. 0 children in the state of New Hampshire have died ages 0 to 12. On your slide, you state collective responsibility for proven education and to protect the health and safety of staff and students. What are you protecting them from? Sorry. You need to protect them from their parents, our decisions. That's not your job. That's not anyone's job except the people who care for them. You're going against exactly what you reached out to us and asked for. You asked the parents and the teachers of this district what we wanted, and resoundingly said no. We don't want to be masked. We don't want our children to be masked. Sorry, I'm not as good of a public speaker and I'm feeling emotional. I just want to understand what data is so dangerous that you feel you have the power to make them mask up. Why are you telling them that they are dangerous to their friends and they're dangerous to their families? You're playing a dangerous mental game with their health. These kids have shouldered more than they ever should have needed to. You are consciously stripping them of the social and emotional education they receive in seeing the faces of their teachers and peers. It is time to step up as a leadership team for this town and stop using our kids as political fodder. It is not their responsibility to bear anymore, and it will not make COVID go away. It never will.
Hi, my name's Joe D'Agostino. I'm from 7 Timber Lane. Joe D'Agostino, 7 Timber Lane. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I've had 3 students in Merrimack school system. I have 1 left in the school system. I just felt it was important because I read the slides, and the main point of the slide was that we're doing masking to stop the spread, correct? I didn't bring my own.
Yeah, we're playing music for
okay.
you. I think it's something happened.
I brought my own soundtrack. So.
Okay.
So we'll start off. New Hampshire's doing really well. There's only 7 states that have done better, okay? We have half the death rate of the nation, okay, per million people. As it's already been said, there's not a single child in New Hampshire that has died of this disease, okay? Under 30, there's 1. This is from the New Hampshire website today. Of the people that have died, 85% are over 70. 95% are over 60, okay? Under 20, 0 again. So let's talk about this. Why are we stopping the spread, right? We want to stop the spread. That's your slide. So what's the death rate? Does anybody know what the current death rate is in New Hampshire? What's that? Sure. The death rate in New Hampshire is 1 every 3 days. Okay? That's about, if you're good at math, it's 119 people a year. Okay? The death rate, whoops, that one back. It's okay, I got it. I know most of it anyway. The death rate for flu in 2017 was 230. So we're saving lives at this point, right? We have 110 less people dying of the flu than are dying of COVID. Right? Huh? I guess that's a good thing, but it's only because COVID itself has driven out the flu. So we're not doing anything with these masks. I'm only here to talk about the masks. We're not saving anyone's life. Now, we might be saving grandma's life. That's good. I want your grandmother and grandfather to live. I want your parents to live. Wear a mask around them at home, right? If you're over 60, wear a mask. If you're going to wear a mask, wear an N95 mask. Don't bother with cloth. Cloth is worse. I have 3 studies here that show that. Okay, am I done?
Yep, you're done.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Can I quote
I'm just
one
trying to
thing?
respect the time
Sorry,
at norms.
Just one thing. This is the NIH. Francis Collins admits masking rules for kids are based on rare anecdotes. Our nurse that's here tonight, that's an anecdote, okay? He's saying, I wish I had the data. They don't even have data for this current variant to show that masking has any effect. Thank you.
Kevin Fulmer, 5A Woodbury. This is just phenomenal. Oliver Wendell Holmes said it's better that 1,000 guilty men go free than one innocent man be put to death. What we are talking about is having innocent people put to death. COVID is a killer. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We talked about the flu.
Okay,
the
stay,
flu
listen,
has
everyone.
gone down because of masks. That's why the flu this last year was so minimal, because everybody was wearing a mask.
Okay, just one more time. I want everyone to know we're going back to core values. Please be respectful. So when a speaker is speaking, please do not speak. The interaction is between the speaker and the board. Thank you.
I work at Elliott Hospital 5 days a week. Everybody wears masks. Now, I will admit that at Elliott, there doesn't seem to be any COVID problem at all. And that's because people were wearing masks. Now, why would we take the chance? Stop signs are inconvenient. I don't like stopping. It wears out my brakes. But I'm going to do it. I don't think anybody should just fire their gun randomly. But it can be inconvenient to them to fire their gun when I fire their gun and not worry about where it's firing. That's inconvenient. This is not a freedom issue. It is a convenience issue. Let's take the chance and make our children safe. That is the bottom line here. My granddaughter is a junior at the high school. She will wear a mask. Her friends will wear masks because it makes sense. You don't spin the gun and play Russian roulette with something like this. And the children, right now, those are wonderful figures. I don't want them to change. Wear a mask.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I live in London Court, probably one of the younger people besides this young chap here. My daughter is 8 years old. She goes to Reed's Ferry.
Can
and
you
I
tell
had
us your
to-
last name, please?
Reyes Silverman.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We just have to have it for the record.
No problem.
Sorry.
My daughter went back to school, and I polled her for about 6 months when kids went back. She went back to school for 9 weeks, and she lost 6.8 pounds due to the fact that she had anxiety and depression about wearing the masks, and she wore them every day, and she was so afraid to take it off. So afraid, because she didn't want to get in trouble. My daughter hates wearing them. Well, my daughter got COVID, by the way. I'm obviously fat. I'm very pregnant, and I have diabetes. It's vicious. I got COVID. My mom was in the ICU with COVID for 5 days, and my mom almost died. I do not deny that COVID is a thing. What I deny is that I'm not gonna make everyone in this room wear a mask because I might die from COVID. It's not fair.
Let her speak, let her speak.
It's not fair. My kid doesn't want to wear a mask. She wants to go to school. And the reason she's okay with it and all this, oh, my kid's fine with wearing a mask. Great, my kid's not. My kid's not, and I have to be her voice. And a lot of people here, their kids aren't either, but they do it every single day because they want to see their friends. They want normalcy, just like everyone else. This is like RSV. It's never going to go away. My daughter is immune compromised. She was in the NICU for a month because she had RDS, which I'm sure People over on that side will know what that is. It's respiratory distress syndrome. My daughter was born with a partially collapsed lung, and she was on an oscillator for 2 weeks of her life. I didn't get to hold her until she was 14 days old. And I still do not force my daughter to wear a mask. I do not, unless she wants to. It is her body, her choice. And that line doesn't end at just abortions. I'm sorry. It doesn't just stop there. So all I'm saying is that masks should be optional. If your child is immune compromised, keep them at home where they're safe. If your child wants to go to school with the masses, then let them. Make it optional. I'm not telling you your child shouldn't be masked. I'm telling you that it should be our choice as parents. And if you have a problem with that, pull your kids.
Okay. Just one reminder, okay? So let's just direct your comments to the board and try to really stay in the line of being really respectful. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sabrina Beebe, 81 Wire Road, Merrimack. I'm here tonight to say a couple of things. My son has autism. He doesn't understand social cues, emotions, things like that. He goes to OT. Miss Garlett, you know Owen. He goes to OT. My son actually has an exemption for his sensory dysphoria, so he doesn't wear a mask. But I'm here to say he's still suffering. Not being able to see other kids' faces on a daily basis is incredibly hard for him. How is he supposed to go to OT 1 day a week and then be able to practice these skills? The only saving grace he has had is Camp Sergeant. Oh my God, the wonderful Camp Sergeant. He went there last summer, June, first week of Camp Sergeant, all 12 weeks. No kid wore a mask. The instructors only had to wear them if they were in a boat with another child. Guess how many cases of COVID were there? 0. My daughter goes to preschool at the Merrimack YMCA. She's been there a little over 18 months now. None of the kids in her class wear masks. Her teachers don't wear them either. They had 1 case of COVID, but it was an instructor who came in to teach music. None of the kids in her class tested positive for COVID. None of them. 18 months, no mask. There's 20 kids in her class. I know because I baked cupcakes for everybody. What I'm here to say is they have shown that children are not vectors of transmission. They are not. They're not seeing it from adult or from child to adult or child to child. If you're gonna mask somebody and you're gonna shut down somebody's life, do it to the adults. Shut down the bars, the casinos, the card rooms. We're the transmitters, not the kids. 100%, not the kids. I'm here to speak for every other child so my child can learn emotion, so he can form connections with people. Because his doctor down in Boston, she told me the longer he waits and the longer it takes him to learn this, the harder it will be and he might not be able to. And this is a life skill he's going to need to have for the rest of his life for him to be a competent person, a functioning adult, a member of society. It is a lot more in depth than just saving a few people from a virus that has a 99% survival rate. Thank you.
Erin Pagan, 33 Mallard Point. I'd just like to piggyback off of what you said. I am not pro-vax, not anti-vax. I am you do you, I do me. This was an email. So I am writing in response to your mask mandate for the 2021-2022 school year. Simply put, the numbers just do not support your request for children to be masked for 6.5 hours a day. It should be the parents' decision on whether our children should wear masks or not. As of today, in a town of roughly 28,000 people, there are 28 active cases, none of which are children ages 0 to 19. Should a child contract COVID-19, their survival rate is 99.97%. Why are we punishing our children? Our children have not worn a mask since the last day of school. How do you expect me to explain to them that while we were safe all summer going out and about with no masks, that they're not going to be safe in school? The transmission rates are extremely low in school per your acting superintendent, and your suggestion of masking them is abuse. They are my children, not yours, mine. It is my decision as their parent on how I proceed with keeping them safe and healthy. If masks are optional everywhere else, why shouldn't it be that way for schools as well? I have personally seen members of this school board and staff out and about this summer with no masks, but you are trying to force our children to wear one for the school year. When will this end? As parents, we have an obligation to be an advocate and voice for our children, and it is my right to decide how I treat my children. As for my children, their mental health is most important to me, and quite frankly, forcing them to wear a mask does not help with their emotional or mental health. While I can empathize with other parents' decision to mask their children, I choose not to. And that's exactly what it should be, a choice. Why should their choice be my children's mandate?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Amanda Gendron, 9 Railroad Ave. I'm a mother of 5. I'm also a transplant patient and currently on autoimmune suppressant. I've had my vaccination, the first, second, and the booster. That was my choice as an adult. I'm protecting myself and my family. When I look at your presentation, it talked about the risk, and you're lumping the kids and the teachers together. The risk is different, and I just ask that you look at the risk for the kids versus the parents and these teachers. They can mask, they're an adult, they have choices to get vaccinated or not. But our kids are not at risk, so you can't lump them in with the adults. Thank you.
Thank you so much for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Michelle Caracados. I'm at 25 Swift Lane, and I've been a resident of Merrimack the last couple of years. I have an incoming 7th grader, and I have an incoming 1st grader. Now, my 1st grader, her school that she was at prior, with COVID and everything, they offered a kindergarten program where the children could be there 5 days a week without masks, and that was the choice we made. It was a financial setback to continue with that, but that's something we had in place and worked great. They didn't shut down one time. We know the risk of COVID-19 in children is very low. We know that. We know studies regarding masks and COVID-19 prevention has been conducted yet found inconclusive. We know our governor is not mandating masks. This summer, my children and I were able to walk freely into restaurants, shopping malls, amusement parks, all without masks. My children had a great summer because they were not restricted. They currently play sports unmasked, and they did in the spring. Last year, OSHA put out information on their website about how cloth masks are not effective, yet now OSHA has come out saying that they are. The information is very mixed. According to the Wall Street Journal, as of August 8th, 2021, the article, The Case Against Masks for Children, public health officials claim to base their decisions and guidance on science, but there's no science behind the mask mandates for children. A new research study by Dr. Makari and his Johns Hopkins colleagues found that of the $42 billion the National Institutes of Health spent on research last year, less than 2% went to COVID clinical research, and not a single grant was dedicated to studying masks in children. Where are the studies? Where is the science? Where is the common sense? And where is the decency, respect of the decision-making of parents? I personally respect somebody's choice to vaccinate or not, to wear a mask or not. But what I'm asking as a parent to please allow us to parent, because the information, the science is just not conclusive. Many of these children are coming into school for the first time, and that is going to be their lasting imprint of their first year. It's my little one's first year in a big school, and she's nervous. She said, "Mom, how are we going to focus? How are we going to breathe?" And this is from her mind. This is not something, jargon I'm putting in her brain. This is her own choice. So thank you guys so much. Please let the parents parent.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I wanted to come here tonight. Normally, I wouldn't be at a school board meeting. I live
You
on
need to give
Amherst
your
Road.
name and your address
Tim
for the
Allen,
record.
Amherst Road, thank you. Like I said, normally I wouldn't be at a school board meeting, but I felt it was important to advocate for not only my kids, but all the other kids that don't have voices in our schools or in our classrooms. As many stated tonight, there is not a lot of science behind kids wearing masks. For those of you who believe in your God Fauci, even he stated that masks do nothing. So to impose masks on our kids that have already lost basically 2 years of their education in our school systems, for the school board to administer masks as a possibility of mandating them as you all sit there with no mask on is appalling to me. If you go back to the founding fathers and James Madison's papers, he wrote about freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, with many other freedoms. Everyone in this room has the power to mitigate COVID the way they choose to. They have the power to have their children mitigated how they choose to. For those of us who don't believe in masks and don't want to send our kids to school with masks, that's our choice, not your choice. So I'm asking you to reevaluate what you want to do, because you're hurting our children. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Charles Day, 2 Chatsworth Court. First of all, I don't envy any of you being in the position. You are educators or are healthcare workers. More is being asked of all of you than you could possibly imagine in your role. So I feel I empathize with you. But I have a child going into kindergarten. Facial expressions and digesting non-verbal cues are a key part of his development. And I don't think I have to cite any more studies about masks, but the only one I will cite is from the University City of London. It's a 2 per every million for children under the age of 20. They call those children for the death rate. If a mandate on my child is not our choice, it's our choice to choose to who parent. Okay, but let's take a look real quick at a second, right? The real dangers of this decision are not going to be felt today, right? You can mask my child. We're going to be angry. We're going to protest. It's not right. But it'll be felt years from now, and all the children, right? The disease that infects our children today is depression, anxiety, drug use, obesity, heart disease, which kills 1 in 4 Americans. So if you want to save a lot of lives, devote as much resources and attention to every parent that owns an in-ground pool, and you'll actually save more lives than children under the age of 18 in the schools with COVID. You can also do the same thing for heart disease. It kills 1 in 4 Americans. So let's focus as much attention on keeping our children fit and healthy and not obese, and you'll save a lot more lives. Don't mandate how to parent our children. It's a choice, and if you do so, my child will not attend your schools.
My name's Gary Barton, 38 McQuestion Road. I echo his sentiments. Thank you for being here and allowing us, everybody. Thank you all for echoing your sentiments. I'm going to try to make this as succinct as possible. Suicide. My wife has a friend in Southern California. We moved here last year, and suicide is exceptionally prevalent last year. I don't know how many suicides there were in high school children last year in New Hampshire, but I'm betting there were a few. A lot of that has to do with masks. I travel for a living. I go to California, I go to Texas. I've been all over the United States this past year. I still go. I'll be in Louisiana be in New York next week and Louisiana the week after that. Will I wear a mask? On a plane, I do because it's mandated. I absolutely have to. I will not anywhere else, nor do I want somebody telling me to do it, no matter who you are. If I choose to, I choose to. You can decide not to go out. You can stay home. Take care of yourself at home.
Okay, wait. Remember, we're holding applause to the end. Thank you.
So, what I want to also say is my sister-in-law is an RN. She runs a COVID ward in Mercy Hospital in Los Angeles. Yes, it is a real thing. But the protocol to treat COVID has been abhorrent. It is changing. You know, there's things coming out, what the CDC, the NIH, and what they've done, and the protocols that they've made have been terrible. So masking children because of what may happen to somebody else is not the answer. So please consider that. Thank you for your time.
My name is David Hunt. I live on 6 Marianne Lane in Merrimack. A lot of people here have cited statistics. I'm not going to repeat them. I will cite 2 studies. One was a Journal of the American Medical Association that did a wide-ranging study that found that masks in children within minutes of being donned raise carbon dioxide levels in the kids' lungs to OSHA unsafe levels. The second study I would cite was that some parents took their kids' masks, sent them to a lab for analysis, and found bacteria like pneumonia, Legionnaire's disease, and other things that you really don't want your kids to be breathing. But I want to take a step back for a minute. The Black Death killed 30% of the European population. 30%. Europe recovered because Europe had a sense of confidence in its own civilization. Throughout history, plagues have decimated and massacred untold percentages of their populations, but those civilizations recovered because they had confidence in their civilizations. I look around and I see people, and please don't misunderstand me, there is a reason to be afraid. But we no longer have a confidence in civilization. We are scared you-know-what-less over a disease that has a 99-point-something% survival rate. How dare we? How dare we mask our kids? And more importantly, speaking for myself, I have one fear, and one fear only. It is not COVID. It is the loss of the live free or die state. This is the live free or die state, not the mask up and cower state. I will not cower. My kids will not cower.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi. I'm Robert Reisman at 8 Iris Drive. There have been some great impassioned speakers from a viewpoint that is very different from mine, and I will not claim to be nearly as good of a speaker, but I'm here to speak in favor of the mask mandate. I do support it. I understand the reasoning. The CDC and the American Academy for Pediatrics are for the mandate. I'm for masking kids, so I take that into account. I know the numbers are much higher in the state of New Hampshire than they were at this point last year, when we actually had hybrid schooling and we had mandatory masking in schools. I think it's great. We're trying to keep everybody in school right now. I actually think that's more important for the mental health of kids than the issue of masks. And I think we may actually keep kids in school for more days by adopting the use of masks. I know already in Florida and several southern states, there have been tons, thousands of kids quarantined, already sent home within.
Hey, we're not, remember, be respectful, please. Please, please. Everyone gets a chance to speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
I also know a lot of folks are, who have my viewpoint, are intimidated to speak, partially because of the passion from the folks who disagree with us. And I get it, but I felt like it was important to speak anyways. I appreciate everybody's time. I don't have anything against those who disagree with me, but I strongly believe in the masks in schools right now. So thank you very much.
Good evening to everybody on the board.
Thank you for your services. I know you guys all volunteered to do it.
Name and address.
I'm
sorry.
getting there,
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Tiffany Castellucci Trant. I'm a resident here for 22 years at 419 South Pabusick Lake Road. I have 2 children that attend the school systems here. One's going into 7th and another is going into 3rd. My 3rd grader, soon to be, suffered extremely consequences this year because of the mandate that we had in this school system. These teachers have gone behind our backs, taking off mask breaks for themselves and leaving our kids behind coverings, okay? Our children have been left there to basically teach themselves because these teachers have fallen off the board so bad because the leadership that they have and have been given has not keeping them on the right track. Instead of paying attention to the education that you guys are giving these teachers to teach our children, they're sitting there and worried more about these damn masks than they are about teaching our kids, okay? I sat there for the past year and picked up where everybody left off. I sat and I had a meeting with Miss Yarlett, okay, a few weeks back and told her all of my concerns that I had because these teachers are more worried about where these kids are sitting, where the dividers are going, and what's over their mouths instead of what they should actually be doing. And that is teaching our kids, not telling the parents what we should be doing. You people up here should not be telling us how to, I'm sorry, am I amusing you? Okay, well, I appreciate respect like I'm giving you. I'd appreciate it in return.
Okay, listen, can we
So-
not attack people, really?
Well, I don't like
it's a
being,
co-
un-
it's a
I-
core.
it wasn't an attack, I was calling her
Okay,
out,
it's okay, it's a core value, let's just try to.
I
be-
saw my family member in the hallway. I saw my family member at the hallway and I smiled. I'm sorry. It had nothing to do with you. I was listening to you.
My time, right? Okay. So basically, I'm a veteran. I fought for our country. I signed my rights away to die for everybody sitting in this seat and everybody else that did it with me. Thank you. Okay? Because I have other brothers and sisters in this room that did the same to fight for the rights that we have. To stand up here and speak to you, for you to sit there and listen to me. These are our rights, our God-given rights. Because if we were in another country, we wouldn't be standing here having any conversation right now, okay? And you guys up on the board should be ashamed of yourselves for masking our kids and taking away their childhoods when they prove absolutely no threat to anybody. The only threat there is a political threat, and that's against you guys not wanting to fall down, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Your
you.
time.
Leave it up to the parents, not you. My decision.
I'm Sarah Locke from 51 Coda Road. I'm not going to talk about any of the science because I'm not a scientist. I own a travel company. This pandemic has been super fun. Really fun, really. I'm excited to get my kid back in school, but I don't even know why we're having this conversation. I was really mad when I saw the first safety plan come out because page 1 was, hey, we're the people that are going to keep your kids safe. And page 2 was, here's what the CDC says. Page 3 was, here's what New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services said. Page 4 said, we're not going to do any of that. Now we have a safety plan that says, you know what, we're going to do what they say. And people are still arguing. You know, it's not lost on me that 2 weeks from now is the 20-year anniversary of September 11th. What are we still doing 20 years later? Taking off our shoes, taking off our belt, walking into a body scanner. If you're a woman, they can see a tampon. I'd like to know which one of anybody in this room that's yelling,
Quiet.
my freedom to TSA. Because I don't think it's anyone, you'd be in a federal prison. You'd be on a no-fly list. And you know what? You're all right here.
Please address to the board, okay, because it's really important. This is not, I know people are upset, but we're here as citizens of Merrimack. We're here to listen. Our superintendent, he invited you here. He wanted to hear you. We're here to hear you. We're not here to beat each other up.
I'm
Let's be
asking
kind.
the very same question.
Yes.
Does anybody here yell at TSA about taking off their shoes? Okay.
Okay, no, just
Yeah.
address to the board, please, please, everyone.
And you do it anyway, right? You go in, you do what's
Okay.
best. There's no science behind that, and yet nobody has died in a hijacked plane for 20 years. those rules are still in place. And you know what? My daughter, my 6-year-old, has an appointment with Homeland Security next week because she, at age 6, still has to get fingerprinted and interviewed to get global entry, even though I already have it. It is what it is. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I just want to remind everyone that we really need to go back to that core value of respect, and we're not going to agree with every speaker that's speaking, but please give them the opportunity to, that's why we're here. We're here to listen. So please, everyone, listen. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Heather Robitaille, 45 Springfield Circle. Been here in Merrimack for over 10 years, and I'm really proud to be part of this community. And thank you for being here and inviting the community here to speak to you and to hear our thoughts. I appreciate that. I know that this is a very charged and very passionate issue for people, and COVID has been a terrible time for everyone. I don't think there's one person in this room, one person on the board, who could raise their hand and say they haven't suffered. There hasn't been a negative impact. We've all felt it. Our children have felt it. We feel it. We want to get through it, and we want it to be gone, but it comes down to this is a public health issue. For the first time in the general public, we are sitting here in the front row learning about epidemiology, the evolving knowledge and study and the imperfection that science can feel like it has. But we still listen to the experts. We still go to our doctors and listen to them for guidance. Our board has gone and listened to experts. The American Academy of Pediatrics, CDC has given these guidelines not because it's going to prevent COVID for everyone, but to mitigate it, to make things safer. And last year, the board implemented multiple layers of protection that allowed our children to be educated safely. And was it perfect? No. Did we all feel an impact? Absolutely. Now we're looking at the Delta variant, which is more contagious, which is a different setting than in the summer when we could be outside. The classroom is not like summer camp. It is an indoor shared airspace. And now, to take away the multiple layers, to take away masking and social distancing, which I understand we can't accommodate to get all our children in the schools, which I believe is the right thing for them to be and to be together, but we should follow the experts. This isn't a freedom issue, it's a public health issue. Employees in restaurants don't get to decide they don't wash their hands after using the bathroom before serving their food. They don't get to say, I'm not gonna wear a hairnet because you're impinging on my freedoms. It's a public health issue. And if the social and emotional cues, and this is complicated, it's not a one size fits all. I understand that and I appreciate that, and my heart goes out to each and every parent. But we need to find solutions to work together because we are in this together, each and every one of us. And if we can listen to the experts, maybe we can really make a change, keep our kids in school longer, and get through this, because we are a great community, and I think we still have a chance to show it. Thank you.
Joyce Allen, 52 Handsome Drive. I was not going to speak tonight, so this is going to be a little all over the place, but I am, I do have children, ages 8 and 4, and full disclosure, I do not have a child in the school system right now because last year I did pull my 8-year-old because of the fear, or my own fear, my opposite fear that the masks and the social distancing were going to infringe on her learning and her already as a baseline anxiety because she had a hard time transitioning to school well before this. So I knew that going into a school year that was unpredictable with online learning, in-person learning, and the masks were only going to escalate that even more. I will say that I'm a nurse practitioner, and I wanted to speak tonight because a lot of times, it is an us versus them thing, and I wanted to share that I'm not on the front line right now, but I have had the ability to do extensive research this whole time, all across the board, not one side, not the other side, all of it. And when you weigh out the risk versus the benefits, these masks for what people are hearing, what you're hearing tonight, the risks do outweigh those benefits. We don't know the long-term risk with these. We do know that somebody mentioned it tonight, that the the mental health effects we're already seeing them. As a nurse practitioner, I'm already seeing some people that I come in contact with. The fear is already instilled in these children. You know, I hear a lot, there's a meme going around that say, maybe 10 years from now, these masks might come out and say that we might find that they were not effective, but maybe they were. What's the big deal of putting a cloth on if they are effective? But my question is, what are the long-term effects that we don't know yet on their mental health, but even on their health? There are studies coming out that some of the surgical masks, when you breathe those in for 8 hours, are going into the lungs and staying there for years. There's a potential for lung cancer there. And then, a lot of people will ask, well, what if you're a nurse? I was a nurse on a unit for 12 years. What about masks then? We used masks when we would go into one patient's room. We would take it off. It was disposable, and we were done with it. We were not putting it back on. We were taught how to do that. We were taught how to take them off with aseptic technique and whatnot. We're not doing that with kids. Kids touch their face like we heard tonight. So, thank you. That's all I have.
Hi, Kathy Comar, Belmont Drive here in Merrimack. I promise I'll behave.
Good.
I promise.
We are worried, no.
I've already sent in my email, but I'm just going to touch on a few points. This, in my opinion, has to be a personal decision. It has to be left up to the families. It's a very contentious issue here in town. Earlier today, I made a few posts, and somebody that doesn't even know somebody else took it upon themselves to look up their private information and send them a nasty message just because of something that was said. So everything was deleted. So that's how contentious this issue is here in town. People have already touched on the fact that, it should be left up to, should be left up to the families to do what they think is best for their own situation and their own circumstances. We're not all in the same boat, and we shouldn't be treated as such. For every study that says masks are good, there is an equal or great amount that says the masks are detrimental to our kids for various reasons. People have touched on the social development and how our children are affected. Over the last 18 months, I can't remember the last time when a little kid who was learning saw a smile from a teacher. If you're a little kid, you need to see a smile. You need to see a teacher's face so that you can see the way that the words are formed coming out of their mouths. Mrs. Yarlett was the principal at the school that my daughter went to. And you have to smile at the kids. You have to teach them. They can't sit there and, Did you guys understand a word I said? No, neither do most of the kids. Sorry, but that's just the way that it is. So if you know that the kids are affected in this way, why would you even think about mandating masks? They should be optional. You aren't the parents of our children. We're the parents. We know what's best for our kids. We know our kids' health conditions. We know what's good for them, what's not good for them. For any of you up there to sit there, or anybody on this side, or anybody on this side, because that's the way the room seems to be divided, to tell me what is best for my child, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to disagree. You don't know the health concerns that we have. You don't know the health concerns that we have as a family, or the health concerns that we don't have as a family. We're not all in the same boat. Stop treating us like we are. Somebody else touched on suicides. Go back for the last 18 months. I don't know if anybody in this room knows, but as of today, New Hampshire's 13th in the U.S. for suicides for kids 24 and under. We're talking kids from the age of 5 and above. 5 to 24. We're 13th in the U.S. Does anybody care about that? How did it start? Yeah, sure, COVID started it. Yeah, sure, remote learning had part of it. It was the masks. You can't see a kid's face. You can't tell if they're sad. You can't tell if they're happy. This needs to be a personal choice. Mr. Everett, welcome to the board. I totally respect everything that you've done so far. After I read what you had put out earlier, I'm sorry, but I respectfully disagree. And I think that we as parents should be given the decision, not you as a board, to regulate our kids.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Maureen McGregor. I live at 3 Harwich Court. Thank you very much for the board for taking time out today. I know it's a really long day. I work as a therapist at the VA hospital, and I've been there for over 20 years. So we've definitely been in the trenches of COVID. During that time, we have seen both in our personal lives and through the hospital the mitigation of the spread of COVID with the use of masks. While we realize that masks are not perfect, it certainly slows down the spread of contact. The purpose of masking is to protect my germs from everyone else. While we're all experiencing different health conditions, what we don't know is the long-term effects of COVID. And the reason why there was not the spread of COVID in the school system was because the children were distanced and masked, which I'm very grateful for. When we take away the other mitigation strategies, such as the plexiglass and the social distancing, it is imperative, even according to the DHHS, that we place other mitigation strategies, such as masking, in place. The CDC recommends all people who are not vaccinated to be masked indoors. The data from last year is different data than we're seeing now. The COVID Delta rate has an R value of 5 to 8, which is close to the chicken pox. This is not the same virus that we were looking at last year. Our children do not have the ability to be vaccinated under the age of 12 as of right now. So while as adults we can do that for ourselves and we could lead our own lives, our children do not have that opportunity. I am pleading with the school board to continue your recommendations of providing a safe, secure environment for all the children and adhering to the CDC, the World Health Organization, the APA, and even DHHS of New Hampshire, given the substantial spread in New Hampshire at this time, to keep masking our children until we have a better handle on this. Thank you so very much. I appreciate your time.
Good evening, Brian Stisser, 50 Middlesex Road. So a lot of people have spoken about parental choice or freedom or liberty as an issue, and the school board and the school administration actually have a lot of latitude to regulate what can and can't happen and can and can't go into a school building, what behaviors are and aren't acceptable across a whole lot of areas. We have dress codes. There are things that the school board can mandate that you can't bring in. Is it a matter of personal choice if a parent wants to send their child to school with pornography into the classroom? I don't think there is a rational adult who would say that that is a matter of parental choice, that a child should be allowed to bring pornography into a classroom. The school board and the administration have tremendous latitude.
Everyone, just a reminder, please. Everyone gets the same respect. Thank you.
The standard is that the school board and the administration may regulate behavior and conduct and what goes into the building in order to promote an environment which is conducive to education. As the previous speaker noted, every public health organization, from the World Health Organization to the New Hampshire DHHS, is unified in their recommendation that given the rate of community spread and the current test positivity rate in Merrimack, we should have universal masking in public spaces indoors. They're also unified in the recommendation that unvaccinated individuals should wear masks indoors in public, which would be all children under the age of 12. So all of these organizations, all of the experts are unified in their opinion.
Okay.
And so the school board and the administration have the latitude to make policy which promotes an environment conducive to education. one of the reasons, if you look at the APA's recommendation, they explicitly state why they believe masks should be a part of the protection in communities with rates of community spread like Merrimack, is because it will help to keep the schools open. Someone spoke about cost-benefit analysis, and when you look at the APA's statement, it is entirely a statement about cost-benefit analysis, and that the benefit of being able to keep schools open is great enough that the measures that will allow the schools to stay open should be adopted. And they actually said measures that might reduce the spread but would require closing schools or having part-time things like maintaining social distancing, they said if those are not conducive to having every child in school, then having them in school is more important. Masks don't interfere with that. Some people have talked about mental health. I have a 5-year-old who will be going into 1st grade, and when he had the hardest time last year was when the school had to go remote because of the rates of spread. That was damaging to him. That was when he had a hard time. The mask didn't interfere with him. He was able to go to school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Hardy, Peasley Road. Matt Chervinel. Nice to see you. You usually let me know when it's snowing, so it's good to actually see a face. I came here really unplanned and unknowing. I'm the husband of Jenna Hardy, and I can tell you all that I'm really grateful for the school board and the decision and sort of the consternation that you guys go through on making these decisions, the sleepless nights, the heartache, and the significant thoughtfulness around reading every word of every email. I think you guys make $1,000 a year, which equates to about 36 cents an hour. So it's really good dollars, obviously, to be on the school board. It's a significant boost in our economy, personally at our house. But the reality is this. I heard a couple of things. Number one, somebody asked for a mask expert. When I was watching this at home, I Googled mask expert. It's not such a job. That doesn't exist. So maybe we could create a master's program in mask experts at Southern New Hampshire University, which would be pretty cool. The bottom line is this. I don't have a stance, and I'm not going to say we should definitely have a mask, we should definitely not have a mask. I think we should become a really inclusive society, and I was thinking this, over this weekend, I was thinking about big phrases about live free or die, and phrases like we the people. It's a we the people. It's not you the people. It's not me the people. It's we the people, right? It's not live free or die, I live free or die. It's we in New Hampshire live free or die. What does that mean? Nobody in here knows. Nobody knows. Nobody is an epidemiologist in this room, as far as I can tell, in terms of listening to the rhetoric. Nobody knows about viral spread, about masks causing lung cancer, or about anything, right? So what I would ask you to do as a school board is simply this. Mindfully, thoughtfully, take into consideration the care for our children, keep my children in school. I have 4-ish children. I have way too many kids, right? I think one's maybe in college. I haven't seen him in a week, but the bottom line is we have a lot of kids in our home. They all go to Merrimack. They all go to these schools. We love this town despite its shitty water, right? But the bottom line is, maybe that's what we should be debating. Maybe, let's change this. Let's just talk about the water. But the bottom line is we're really grateful for the school board, and we hope that you guys, and I really hope that this crowd really understands that they're being thoughtful and mindful and allows them to make their vote in peace and go home in peace. Because you're not there when I wake up at 2 a.m. and look over at my wife who's up because she's concerned. So thank you very much.
Hi, I also wasn't planning on speaking today. I kind of just decided this about 5 seconds ago.
Name and address for the record.
Oh, I'm Chloe Hardy. I'm Jenna and Scott's daughter. I live on Peasley Road. I personally don't really care if we have to wear masks or not. I think that no matter what happens, I'm going back to school, and I want to see my friends again. I want to learn. I want to be with my teachers. I want to be with people, and whatever happens, I'm going to go to school and push through it like a champ, like everyone else is, because it doesn't matter. We just want to see people again. So just let me wear masks, let me not wear masks, I don't care. Just, I want to be back in school. So, thank you.
Malaconis, 6 Mulligan Road. So I kind of put this together. I have 4 kids, 3 of which are going to be in the school system. And first of all, I want to thank the teachers and case managers that have dealt with my oldest son for the past year and a half. He's a lot, but he, you know, he's done the best that he could in the circumstances that we're in. That being said, he's a student that's on an IEP, and he can't see faces, so that's hard. He has dyslexia, so every time he learns how to read, he can't see the letters that people are saying to him. So understanding that letter to sound ratio doesn't happen, and that has been hard. He also chews on his mask all day, so he has holes in his mask every day when he comes home. So every single mask we throw away. There are times that they give him a new mask, and it's not the teacher's fault by any stretch of the imagination. But every day, all of the germs that are going onto that mask are in my son's mouth every day. This is hard. I am not anti-mask. I'm not pro-mask. I'm really in the middle. That being said, I feel like it's a choice that I should make because I see what happens to my son every day. And I know the impact that it's having on my children every day. Masks, the decibel levels that actually are blocked when you're wearing a mask are 5 to 12 decibel levels less. So when you're wearing a mask, you're impacting that sound coming out of somebody's mouth. So when somebody has a language impairment, if somebody has cognitive deficits, they have processing, working memory issues, all of that is being impacted by our language that is not coming out of, that is not being clearly spoken through that mask. And so it's affecting all students. It's really affecting our special ed students. It's really affecting our kids that have hearing impairments. So again, I think everybody has a choice that they can wear a mask if they'd like, if they want their kid to not wear a mask. But I know for my kid how detrimental it is, and every day I have to deal with that. And I sent him to tutoring this summer to get extensive tutoring where he didn't have to wear a mask, where he could learn to read because he wasn't getting that at school. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate everything.
Hi, my name is David Hunt. I've spoken before. My
Yeah,
apologies for the double
Hi,
dip.
we're only keeping one time this time. You can speak at the end of the meeting.
Okay,
Did someone
well-
speak twice? I
Well, I was making sure there was no one behind me.
Oh, okay. But yeah, there are people behind you. But we're letting people speak at the end of the meeting in public participation. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, at the end of the public comments, yes, yes. So, so thank you, everyone, for being so respectful. I just want to tell you, I really do appreciate everyone's respect tonight. I really do, because this is, you know, very contentious in some ways. So thank you.
Hi, Jen Page, Nichols Lane. So I think it's great that you guys are taking public comment on this. But in the end, this is a public health issue. As everyone has said, all of the public health experts have all weighed all the information and come up to the same conclusion. You know, it's nice to talk about personal freedoms, but when you're talking about an infectious disease, your decision affects me. Personal choice is that I could leave here tonight and go home and down a fifth of vodka. That wouldn't be a good choice, but it would be my personal choice. I would not, however, be entitled to get behind the wheel of my vehicle after doing that, because that would affect all of you. That's public health. If we were putting in a swimming pool at the high school and somebody decided they didn't think it was fair to prevent their child from being able to pee in the pool if they felt like it, that's not a personal decision that you can make. You pee in the pool, it affects everyone else in the pool. That's what it is with an infectious disease. It's not a personal decision. You have...
Okay. Everyone, thank you.
You have a lot of people who have no medical background coming up here and throwing pieces of information at you like the size of a particle traveling through a mask. Well, yes, you can learn from reading on Google that the size of a mask hole is X and the size of a virus particle is Y, and you can form the conclusion that that particle can go through that mask. If you have medical training, you might know to think, does the particle travel through the air freely, or is it attached to something else, like a respiratory droplet, which is too big to pass through that mask? So it's all well and good for people to have their opinions, but if they don't have any medical background, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm sorry. The question of will it ever go away as an argument against wearing masks, COVID probably will never go away. At this point, it's felt that at some point we will get up to 80 or 90% of people either being vaccinated or immune, and it will become endemic instead of a pandemic. And what is going to keep that from overwhelming medical systems, which I know New Hampshire is doing fine right now, but if you look at other parts of the country, their hospitals are overwhelmed. The way we prevent that from happening is we try to slow the spread of the virus, and the way we do that is to do things like wearing masks. And I would like to point out that people speaking on one side seem to be able to contain themselves and not make commentary while the other side was speaking.
Okay.
Good evening, Nancy Murphy, Brenda Lane. Thank you all for taking the time tonight to listen to all of these public comments. I appreciate it. I wanted to thank the Merrimack School District CEO for his COVID mitigation recommendation. As a retired nurse and grandparent of 3 children in the district, I appreciate your efforts to make a difficult decision for all the right reasons. In addition to the risk of death from COVID, other systemic effects that involve the lungs, pancreas, arteries, brain, stomach, etc., can have lifelong and long-term negative impacts on human health. When we have mitigation strategies available to us to minimize risk and that impact human health, it would be negligent to willfully choose to ignore them. Public health risk and the safety of our students and school district personnel should be the determining factors for such important decisions. Thank you for making a public health decision the way it should be done, based upon science. As the board strives to provide Merrimack's children with a safe learning environment, I hope that each of you will support this sound recommendation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Josh Locke. I live at 11 Peter Road. Thank you for the time. I know it's a tough decision, and there's a lot of people and data, and it's all over the place. So I get that, and I know that you're probably spending way more time researching and looking at it all. So just from my heart, seeing my kids, I have a son entering elementary school and 2 other kids shortly behind. I just believe it's really important that kids are able to go to school without this symbol of fear, of worry, or anything like that. And I just think it's so important that our kids are able to experience that. And I hope that you will look at the data. You know, when it rains in Texas, we don't leave with an umbrella, right? Like, I understand COVID is bad in some places. It has not been like that in New Hampshire. And we don't need to do all the precautions that other places do. One of the thoughts I had as I talked with my wife, so I looked at the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, and they talked about, to wear a mask. So I saw that back on the 11th. That's the recommendation now, and that's why you're making this adjustment. They also talked about cohorts and how with cohorts, that helps prevent some outbreaks and things like that. And I just wonder, is there a way where we can find some middle ground? I don't want my kids to wear masks. I don't want that to happen. But is there a way we can lessen it to any amount, where maybe just in high traffic areas or something like that, where they're walking in the hall, they wear a mask. When they're in the classroom, they don't need to do it. The CDC says that close contact is when you're not socially distanced and you're around people for 15 minutes for cumulative 15 minutes in a 24-hour period. So any kid in any class is going to be a close contact according to the CDC. So if that's already going to happen, I feel like, can we limit some of this, the having to have masks in a classroom, so that way that they can experience school, experience the facial recognition, and be able to not have that symbol. Not that masks need to be fearful. I'm not saying that, but for my son it is. And when we stopped school, it was a really fearful thing for him to take his mask off. And I don't want that. I don't want him to experience that. So that's my heart in this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can I just have a quick show of hands of how many people still want to speak? Can I just have a quick, so we have 1, 2, okay, 3. Okay, so 3 more speakers, and then we'll move forward. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Callahan at 5 King Henry Court. This is scarier than it looks. I have 2 quick points. I haven't heard this yet, but I just wanted to point out that in other countries in Europe, their CDC organizations, the equivalent to the CDC over there, are not requiring masks or recommending them for students, children under 12. So if you haven't looked into that, that's a fact. So, you know, the UK, Italy, France, they're not masking up their kids in schools. Also, I just want to mention that, you know, I don't think anybody in here thinks that the school board or district has the authority to compel any of us to harm our children. So this could apply to both sides here, but for me personally, I think that masks are harmful. And if they are mandated, I just want to mention that there are other options. I will be taking my kids out of the schools until masks are optional. Look into VLAX or homeschooling. I will not be compelled to harm my child.
Hi, I'm going to be really fast. My name is Chad Lauren. I live on Bean Road. I'm a new resident to Merrimack. I just moved here in January. For that whole time, and even previously, my daughter is 2, so she's not even going to be going to school. But this whole time, she's been in daycare, not wearing a mask. All the kids are fine. The teachers are fine. Nobody's died. And I want to echo what somebody else said. The real public health threat that we're dealing with right now is obesity. We need to be focusing on health. Thank you.
Okay, final
Good evening.
speaker.
Am I the last?
Yep, you're it.
Way to disappoint. Speaking of obesity, my name's Bill Finkston, 17 Jessica Drive. I sent y'all an email. Y'all know where I stand on this, and I'm very disappointed that it took till a few minutes before lunchtime today to get a reply back. And the reply back had no substance. It was a very generic email saying, sorry we offended you, et cetera, et cetera. I was not offended. I just want to let you know I'm the parent. Lori, you're not the parent. Jenna, you're not my kid's parent. Shannon, Lori, Everett, or Bill, Kimberly, and Matt, wherever you went, you're not a parent. You are an elected official. You work for us. And the theme of the room, no? I'm sorry that you don't work for us. Maybe the next election will go a different way. But the point being,
can we
the
just
theme
stay
in the
with
room,
the,
I'm
please.
talking to the board, correct?
I know, could you?
The theme of the room
Listen,
is
you need to be
we
respectful.
care about our kids. I am.
Okay.
I am being very respectful.
Please
I am
do not attack anybody.
disappointed by the lack of response to the email that I sent, Jenna, and I'm sorry if I offend you by being blunt and honest. Half
Okay.
the people in this room have me blocked on social media, and now you can see why. But I chose to sit on this side of the room to bridge the gap, okay? So my feelings is, let us be parents. We care about our kids more than you ever will, okay? And we know the little ins and outs that make our kids. We trust you with their education, and that's what we want you to do, educate. Educate and care for them, but let us make the final decision on what's best for our children. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move forward. Okay, at this time, we're going to move forward. We're going into recognitions.
We have no recognitions tonight. We hope we have a recognition at the next school board meeting.
Okay, informational updates, superintendent update.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming. I will be certainly making some comments and when we do the presentation, but thank you, because it's not easy for all of you to come out with families, and I appreciate all of what you have had to say. and I'll have some responses to that certainly later on. I do want to indicate that there will be another immunization clinic, a back-to-school immunization clinic that will take place on Wednesday, September 1st at Merrimack High School from 1 to 3 p.m. That's Wednesday, September 1st. And we'll put that, post that on our website. And that is all I have for tonight. Just a brief update tonight because I knew we had a very long agenda.
So now we have the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum.
Hello, everyone, and I echo the thanks for your comments and sharing your opinions about this really difficult decision. So I appreciate all of your presence. Thank you. So for the Assistant Superintendent Curriculum update, September 1st is around the corner. September 1st is the first day back for teachers. The first day will be spent with them setting up their classrooms. And the second day, we have an exciting event where we have 2 keynote speakers. Those keynote speakers are experts in their field, both doctors, and we'll be speaking about resiliency in children. And that'll be a great day. The staff will experience this via their own home schools through a webinar. And then our third day back, we have the professional staff engaging in some training around the Canvas informational platform, as well as Universal Design for Learning, UDL, and social emotional learning. So the professional development is very promising. The teachers and the administrators are really excited about having the kids back in school, and I share that excitement as well. Thank you.
School board update. Okay. Student representative update. Our student representative will be rejoining us in September when school comes back. Old business. Health and Safety Task Force update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we begin, I begin going through the slides, which I hope a lot of you have had an opportunity to view, and some of you have. I do want to say that what we don't have is the benefit of knowing each other. I hope to get to know you over the course of the year. This is my 51st year in education. It's been 51 years of representing students to the best of my ability. We knew this would be a contentious issue. Of all of the mitigation strategies, and I am not a representative of the CDC, I'm not a representative of the federal government, but I know what I have observed over the last 18 months. I know what I've seen. I know what I've heard from pediatricians who I dealt with repeatedly last year, and I've had some discussions in the last month. And of all the mitigation strategies between vaccinations, distancing, masking, ventilation, hand washing, everything in between, sanitization, deep cleaning, screening, testing, certainly the masking issue has been the most contentious across the country, and I expected it to be that way in Merrimack. It's been a very divisive issue, and that's the reality of what we're dealing with in the country right now. What I've tried to do is put the differing opinions aside and say, based on what I've seen from medical documentation, what I've heard from pediatricians, I've tried to make a recommendation in this PowerPoint that represents, in my view, the best decision to keep children, your children, and the staff safe in this school system. I did that for the last 18 months. I will, as we go through this, I'll convey to you what I heard directly from pediatricians, not conjecture, not anecdotal stories, but what I heard directly from pediatricians in terms of anxiety, depression, mental disorders that were associated with being out of school, not necessarily with masking. All right? I respect all of your opinions. Please know that. Our common interest is in protecting your children and the staff in this school system. where on any one day we have about 5,000 people within close proximity of each other. And that's the lens that I look at this through. So with that, let me get started, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. First of all, we start with the good news. Yes. And that is the students and staff will be returning to school. Last year was horrific for every child throughout the country. In my former school district, which was no different than Merrimack, we had students remote for much of the year, hybrid. We had pediatricians repeatedly telling me every 2 weeks in my COVID advisory committee that they weren't seeing the incidence of transmission of COVID because of the masking, the incidence of influenza and the common cold. If you let me finish, please.
Okay.
I didn't. Okay.
This meeting right now is closed. He's presenting. Okay, so we already did public participation. The meeting is closed. He's presenting.
Those are direct observations from pediatricians on my COVID advisory committee. We know that isolation was not good for many children. They weren't able to connect with their peers. They weren't able to connect with their teachers, which is extraordinarily important. That's the importance of bringing students back to school this year. It's all about connecting. They need to be with their friends, with their peers. They need to be with their teachers. You and I can all remember a favorite teacher we had in our lives because they gave us a pat on the back, a kind word, an inspiring comment. If you'll excuse me, I didn't interrupt you, and I don't expect to be interrupted if we're going to get through this tonight, and get through it civilly, okay?
Okay. I'm
So-
gonna ask people one more time to be respectful. If not, we're gonna have to ask you to leave the meeting. All right, this is a presentation. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Doesn't get us where we need to go.
So to those here, thank you for allowing me to continue. All right? So we want children back to be connecting with their friends. We want them to be connecting with the teachers. Jenna, if we could have the next slide, please. Yes. So as some of you have said tonight, both the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics have repeatedly indicated about the importance of students being back in school in person. We heard it all last year, how important it was. But the time, in many instances, wasn't right because of the uncertainty over transmission and the spread of the virus, all right? So our goal, that I have and the administration, the Health and Safety Task Force, and our leadership team is to bring your children back to school and have them physically present. Now, where have we been over the last several weeks? Jennifer, can you have the next slide? We've talked with the Merrimack Public Health Officer. We've consulted repeatedly the New Hampshire Division of Health Services data. We've participated on several calls that they have made to superintendents and school administrators across the state. Talked with some local pediatricians about what they're observing. And talking with you tonight as members of the community. All part of where we go with this in terms of how do we bring kids back safely, not only the children safely, but the staff safety. Jenna? I base a lot of my decisions on the New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services. Look, we've all experienced CDC whiplash for the last 18 months. You know, one week it's this position, another week it's another position. It hasn't helped the matter. It hasn't helped the matter at all. But what I do base my decisions on is what is happening in New Hampshire, and more specifically, as the data applies to Merrimack. So my recommendation is based on data and information I've received from the New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services and from our local health officer. Jen, can we have the next slide, please? We know this is a balancing act. I knew coming in here tonight because it's been the same positions for the last 18 months from people, not only here but across New England and across the country. Mask, don't mask. What I have to do is balance what do we have available for mitigating strategies in the Merrimack School District, and how do I balance that against the mental and emotional health issues and keeping kids in school. Okay, Jen? You know, these are the major mitigation strategies. The vaccinations, we're at about 57% as a town right now in terms of 2 doses of vaccine. Children between the ages of 12 and 19, about 32 or 33% right now. It's climbing slowly, but it needs to be, whether it's Merrimack or any other community, needs to be higher to be able to feel confident about just saying no masks or optional masks, in my opinion. So the major ones are vaccinations, which it's a community effort. I need you to work with us to help keep the kids in school. Okay? The distancing, most of the schools across New England were built a number of years ago, even if they were built 5 years ago. This pandemic wasn't around at that point in time, and 3 feet and 6 feet of distancing wasn't a consideration in terms of design of school building structures. Hand washing, well, that's a practice that we engage in every single day in the school system and will. And so the major one, obviously, is masking. All right. So the next slide, Jim. You can help us. You can help us by increasing the level of vaccinations in the community. Now, I know that there are some religious and cultural reasons that people choose not to vaccinate, and that is your individual right, certainly. No one can make you be vaccinated. We all know that. But experts in the medical profession have been indicating now that an increasing level of vaccinations will help as a major mitigating strategy and can help us address to a greater extent the issue of masking, which has become so contentious. Next slide, Jen. So I know that you want the kids back in school. We all want the kids back in school. My responsibility to you, and it's the same responsibility that I've had for 50 years and now 51 years, and it hasn't wavered, is to represent the best interest of your children from an education, give them an excellent education. But my responsibility as a leader of a school system, regardless of where it is to protect your children and our staff, whether it's school intruders or whether it's a health issue. You know, I have 4 kids and 8 grandchildren. I don't look at this any differently than any of you. Our lives have been changed. They've become more difficult. There are places we haven't been able to go, things we haven't been able to do, things we've denied our children and grandchildren of in the last 18 months. It has to stop, and we all know that. But while it still continues, and until such time as the strains of this virus become such that we know more about, and the medical profession knows more about how to deal with them, and we live with them from year to year, like influenza, I have to do what I think is right to try and protect your children, because we've got 5,000 people between children and adults congregating every single day when they come to school. That's different, we all know, than them being outside on the playground, or even being in your homes or other places where they can be, whether knowingly or unknowingly, distanced. Okay? Jen? So, as some of you said, what I've tried to lay out, and this is the way I look at it, whether you agree with me or not, my decision is based on the degree of health risk I'm willing to expose our students and our staff to at this time of uncertainty, where in my conversations with some pediatricians, they are indicating that the incidence is growing of the Delta variant. It's much more transmissible, and being recommended that people be masked, whether we want to hear it or not. That's what the medical community is saying. And so I've laid out for the school board the three options. First, everyone masked to start the school year. What I'm not saying is that we would be masking for the entire year. What I'm suggesting is we take it a month at a time. And if we can determine through the New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services, through consultation with local pediatricians, that conditions are safer, there is no one who wants to remove masks from kids more than everybody at this table. So that is, in my opinion, the safest way to approach the beginning of the school year, not the entire school year. I'm saying I'd rather see us start cautiously and see what happens. There are school systems across the country that have started the year with optional or no masking. Now, they're not New Hampshire. They're in different parts of the nation. But their experience has been, in some instances, that they've had to either close the schools or they've had to go fully remote and then fully mask both staff and students, because there was a rapid spread and it got out of control faster than they could handle it. Okay? That's what has happened in some areas of the country. Under optional masking, we do increase the possibility of transmission. I understand as much as you the issue. I understand the issue of individual liberties, and not trying to tell you what is best for your child or what your child should be doing. But here's where I represent all of the children in this school system, all of them. And a child who is not masked could potentially transmit this virus to another group of students or to a staff member. It's not only the students, please keep in mind, it's not only the students. One of the real struggles that every school system, I'm just going to take New England, had last year was keeping staff in schools. There is not an abundance of substitute teachers. There hasn't been for a year and a half now. I don't know where everyone's gone, quite honestly, but the substitute teachers are not out there. It is a different labor market right now. And so my concern is also not only the health of students, but the health of the staff that we need to keep in front of children to be able to deliver curriculum and instructional practice. And so that ability becomes compromised with optional masking. It becomes even more compromised with no mask options, because we don't know what will happen. But there's a greater certainty, because of the way this virus is transmitted, there's a greater certainty of the possibility of it being transmitted. Now, this is the New Hampshire DPH indoor face mask recommendation matrix. This was published about 2 weeks ago by the New Hampshire DPH. It's based on the level of transmission, minimal, moderate, substantial. If you go to the next slide, Jen, I'll explain to you carefully what constitutes minimal, moderate, and substantial transmission. The minimal is the number of new cases per 100,000, not just the number of new cases, because that's a means by which data is reported also. All reporting health agencies, federal and state, use this data, this metric, the number of new cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days. So if it's less than 50 and the percent of positivity rate, both antigen and PCR being the molecular test, the more reliable of the test, being below 5%, that's minimal transmission. I'll show you where Merrimack is in a few minutes. Moderate transmission is a number of new cases per 100,000 that exceeds 50, and substantial is a number of new cases per 100,000 is over 100, or a percent positivity rate that exceeds 5%. This is the data over the last week. And I would like to focus on those columns with the yellow numbers, because that's the data that links to the Division of Public Health Services matrix. The Merrimack rate of new cases per 100,000 population, as you can see, on the 16th was 174, 17th was 174, the 18th was 174. As of the 19th, I have the 20th here also, it's still 174, okay? The percent positivity varies to some degree. Started at 7%, 6.8%, 6.6%. The latest figure is about 6.5%, but that's been jumping back and forth. So by those metrics, which are for this town, we are in a substantial level of transmission. Now, I know that someone mentioned, and because I've seen the numbers on the DPH website also, the number of active cases is 28, okay? But I have to go with the metrics. I can't make up my own, nor should any other school administrator. That would be completely irresponsible to make up our own metrics. So we go with what is proposed by the Department of Health and Human Services in New Hampshire. And Jen, if I could have that last slide, please. Yeah, the last one. No, the one, 2 slides back. Just the arrow that goes the other way. Okay, arrow. There we go. So as of 8/17, and that still continues as of today, the 23rd. Okay? The Merrimack is in what the state considers a level of substantial transmission, and universal masking while indoors is my proposal to the school board for the students, staff, and visitors in the month of September. What I don't want to see, what none of us in this room wants to see, is masks being worn all year. But we don't know right now. We just don't have enough information of what's going to happen after the school year begins. That's why I'd rather start off more cautiously with our children and our staff than less cautiously. That's my commitment that I make and have always made to students, as I said, whether it's school violence, whether it's intruders, or whether it's health risks. My job is not to put your children at risk. And I take that very, very seriously. So Jen, so up at the top, it says our district will follow the up-to-date New Hampshire Division of Public Health Service guidelines and current Merrimack data to determine mask usage. That's the criteria that I've used to make this recommendation to the school board this evening. The district will review weekly data. I review weekly data with Erin Olson, no relation. The last name of Olson is spelled differently. So Erin is no relation to me, but she has been an extraordinary help to us and to the Health and Safety Task Committee. She has met with us regularly. She provides me with regular data from the DPH, okay? And so we'll confer on a weekly basis, and we'll use the data we have. We're tracking this every single day to inform of a possible change in mask usage. I will say to you, and I understand your comments about the impact that masks had on some of your children that you mentioned here tonight. Every day I was in classrooms last year. I watched children being amazingly resilient wearing masks. Now, they may not have liked it. The adults may not have liked it. We didn't like it. But they were amazingly resilient in terms of keeping the focus on what was going on in the classroom while wearing their masks. You know, a lot of them, after a while, I would go over to and talk with them about, many of them had masks with their favorite characters, cartoon characters, superheroes, princesses, kings, queens, everything in between, all right? Movie characters. And they were extraordinarily proud to show them off to their friends and to the staff in the schools. So that's what I saw personally, every day, every day. All right, please, if
Yep,
you let me
yep.
finish, and I'll respond to anything you'd like to ask.
It's not question and answer,
Sorry?
though. It's not question and answer.
Okay, but
So, yeah, so,
you can call me or contact me, and I'll be glad to respond to you, okay? But let me just say, let me finish, please. In talking with the administrators here, the leadership team, over the last 2 weeks, I asked the principals directly, what did you observe last year in terms of any consternation among students of wearing masks? They did not see it. Okay, they just simply did not see it, which was the same thing that I observed. They adapted to it, they adjusted to it. They became quite resilient, okay? And they learned. It's not a lesson that we necessarily want to learn for a long period of time, but they're learning how to adapt and how to adjust, and that is one of life's skills that we need to keep in mind, all right? So we're going to review it with the health officer each week. Next slide. And next slide, yep. And so how do we communicate this? Well, we will put information up from our Health and Safety Task Force, hopefully tomorrow. We wanted to get through this meeting first before the Health and Safety Task Force updated information is placed on our website. We'll provide you with data on a weekly basis, okay? And the nurses will be providing you, we met this morning with the school nurses about information from each one of the schools in terms of the protocols that we will go through if a child becomes ill or staff member becomes ill, the issue of quarantining, the issue of contact tracing, which is different from what it was last year. All right. So with that, let's make that the last slide because we won't engage in any additional questions. But that's my recommendation to this school board.
Thank
and
you.
My recommendation is to try and keep children and staff as safe as possible, starting the school year more cautiously than less cautiously. And I thank you for listening to me.
Okay, comments from the board. Lori Peters.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Our community is better when we talk to each other face to face than over social media. When we sit in a room and we talk together. And I appreciate everyone who came out tonight and even those who have already left for tonight. In full disclosure, my husband and I had COVID last year. My husband's cousin died of COVID at the age of 50. My son, currently a college student in Virginia, has COVID right now, he found out today. Because the state of Virginia, while he was doing his internship there this summer, would not allow him to get a vaccination because he was a New Hampshire resident. They had different policies in New Hampshire. My daughter and her best friend, graduates of Riviere, worked on the COVID floor of Southern New Hampshire Medical Center as RNs. My daughter currently works at Elliott, and one of the reasons she changed hospitals was because of the policies regarding N95s and the incredible day-to-day migraine she was having working 15-hour shifts as an RN. My other daughter is a special education teacher in Virginia and sees face-to-face those students that struggle. As you guys know, I'm an educator. I taught last year face-to-face 5 days a week in crowded classrooms, in crowded hallways. I say all that because COVID's very real for me. I'm also a mathematician, and I am capable, and I have access to every electronic journal in the world, reading qualitative and quantitative data. I am able to interpret that data in statistical analysis. But having a PhD in another field, I also go to experts. And the problem we're having tonight with both sides of the room is the experts don't agree. A number of you have said that the World Health Organization and the CDC agree, and they do not. On the World Health Organization website, their recommendations are no masks for children 5 and under. For masks for children 6 to 11, the conditions for deciding if children should wear a mask are based on, first, a medical condition that a child has, widespread transmission in the community. Widespread is defined as the CDC's category is high, not substantial. And that all considerations of wearing masks need to take into consideration the impact of wearing a mask on learning and psychosocial development. The CDC itself did a study of 90,000 students. That is a very large cohort to study in Georgia. They compared mitigation factors among schools that had different mitigation factors. A quote from that study said, "Student masking had no statistical impact on COVID transmission among students within the school." As someone mentioned tonight, countries around the world are not masking their children. Now they're on a schedule that reflects more of a year-round schedule, so they only had a summer break beginning a few weeks ago, and they're already going back next week. UK, Ireland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, France, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Italy are not masking and did not mask the last 6 months without an outbreak. Alyssa Schechter-Perkins, who's the Director of Emergency Medicine, Infections, Disease Management at Boston Medical Center, said, "There are real downsides to masking children for this long. I am not aware of any studies that show conclusively that kids wearing masks in school has any effect on their own morbidity or mortality or on the hospitalization or death rate in the community around them." Key CDC findings regarding the Delta variant in their press release on July 19, 2021, is that children are less likely to have severe disease and lower contagiousness even of Delta. The FDA site director, Dr. Gottlieb, on July 18, 2021, said that for children, there's a limited effectiveness of cloth masks. N95s only are the most effective. As we said in the presentation, adult vaccination is the number way to prevent spread to children. Ashish Jha, the Dean of Brown University of Public Health, and Western Branch Element of Harvard Medical School both published a study talking about that adults are the transmitters to children, not children to children, and not children to adults. Let's talk about the Delta variant. In the UK, which has had the Delta variant much longer than the United States, it is not more virulent, it is more contagious, but it is not more deadly, nor is likely to cause an increase in hospitalizations in the most vulnerable people. We do see that there's an increase in children having it this year. 2.5 million children in the United States have had COVID this summer. That's a large number. But of the 73,039,150, it's only 3%. Only 1,900 children in the entire country have been hospitalized, which is 0.07% of those infected. We've talked about Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. The headlines make good news, but they did not follow the CDC guidelines. The CDC guidelines for contact tracing are not the classroom. They are close household contacts. But the schools used last year's CDC guideline. So let's talk about Merrimack. We've said all along we are going to have a data-driven decision about Merrimack and look at Merrimack. Yes, we are above the 100 per 100,000 per capita amount in Merrimack.
It is declining. It has been declining since we hit that high mark 2 weeks ago. The Delta variant here in New Hampshire, there are less than 10% of all cases this summer have been the Delta variant. That comes from WMUR and New Hampshire Public Radio. So here's my proposal, and somebody actually mentioned it earlier, a middle ground. Having taught face-to-face, our elementary students did not wear masks. Our secondary students wore masks in the hall and on their way to lunch and on their way to PE. In classrooms, when they were seated, they were in cohorts with assigned seats, and they took their masks off. We can do that same middle ground. Going across in front of each other, walking across, that is the biggest risk. And we can find that middle ground. We can also, if we want, wait to see the other schools that start in the next week and a half and come back to this discussion. But the problem we have is a disagreement in experts. We have a very unique situation here in Merrimack, and I think we can find a safe middle ground that is not universal masking right out of the gate.
Other board members who would like to speak?
Shannon?
I think there are a couple things that were said tonight. The one thing I have to say is a testimony was appreciated from both sides, from all sides. The one thing I think that we need to understand and we're trying to be mindful of is, for many of us, your faces are very new. So I think that as COVID has gone on, this is probably one of the most critical decisions we've made. The one thing I would say to those who came who've never been to a meeting before, just kind of watch what testimony looks like. The only thing I'm going to ask is, when people are talking, don't talk. Everyone has a right to speak. Everyone has an opportunity to speak. We can't get the business done if we're just wrangling, just wild comments throughout the room. It takes us offline, and we have a lot of big decisions. So, when someone doesn't agree with your position, when you do agree with a position, a lot of tonight took a lot longer because we had to settle the room about 25, 30 times. And that includes when our administrator was presenting to us. So with that, I want to say thank you for giving the testimony. Thank you for giving your thoughts. Thank you for taking the time to come here. But just know that we're all spending our time here. And we've been spending, at least for me, I'm on my 12th year here. So spending that time because we're dedicated to doing what's better for this community. I just hope we can do a little better next time. As far as allowing people to speak whether we agree or not, allowing people to present so we can get data and a thought completed. It's so important for us to get thorough and testimony that we can take in. So with that, we wanted to hear all of you, and I think as one of the commenters said, not everyone got to speak the way others were allowed. So with that, I hope to hear more from you, but again, let others who maybe not agree with you speak as well. I think this is divisive. It's been proven tonight, like big time. But with that, I think that when it comes to masking, I think we've gotten testimony, and we have gotten testimony from a pediatrician tonight that talks about, particles and sizes in masks, and I know we can take data and make it whatever we want it to be. But we need to talk about what our responsibility is. I think someone took very personally your kids are our kids, and we all know that, our kids are our kids. But I think what they wanted to come across is your kids are very important to us, and it's why we chose a profession of education. It's why we want to make them better, because the community is better, society is better if we do our part. So with that, I think that we as a board, administration, we all need to do well to put our best foot forward, because our kids are going to see this meeting someday. They're going to say what happened in 2021 when big decisions had to be made, and how did we step to the plate, and were we kind, respectful, did we take on the ability to listen to each other's thoughts and take it with respect and decency? And I think we need to maybe a little refinement on that. But I do think that we need to hear both sides of the story tonight, and we did. With that, Lori, I respect everything you said, and the data that went behind that was thorough and very, I would say, diverse. I didn't feel it was, I feel in the same token that Bill also took very good data, took good experts into the fold, and tried to make a good decision. And just like you had mentioned, Lori, those decisions don't match. So what's next? And I think that some options came up. Do we wait to see how other schools are going to open around us? And I think some of them are going to directly impact our students, especially in the high school, where there are tech education classes that are in the Hudson School District and the National School District. So we will have impact on their policies with our students. Do we take a stand now that we feel we can live with? And then I think the one thing is, can we have a policy? And I don't think it was brought up, but I think it could be part of that middle ground of having a policy of masks, but just as any other initiative, having parents send a letter to opt out. So that means that for all intents and purposes, if parents are going to follow the policy, and if they are not allowing that or wanting that for their child, they can opt out in writing. But with that, I think that we need to make sure that we as a district refine how we were going to open. I think we have to have maybe more monitoring of hand washing, making sure we're doing it more frequently, making, just keeping a better practice of keeping the cleanest environment possible, because I think one of them, and I used to call it the same thing, schools are a petri dish. We know that during cold season. So, but things we can do to take steps. So do we have an answer? No, I liked what you came up with, but I'm definitely hearing that there's other ways of doing things. So maybe it's having that mandate, but having an opt-out for parents, but they would have to come to us to opt out. Just like they would for a field trip that they didn't want their child to be on or something like that. And that way you would get the vast majority of families just going with the expectation, having those that want to opt out on record for opting out. So just a consideration that, based on tonight's testimony, I didn't think I would be giving, but just an option that we may want to entertain.
Jenna?
So I'm also really grateful for everybody showing up. I'm also really grateful for the work that the district has done. The Health and Safety Task Force, I know personally some of the teachers and administrators that are on that team that have worked really hard at, looking at the data and focused on local data, because that's what, they feel is the best option for our town, as opposed to looking at what's happening in the country, which has to take in what's happening, say, in the South or wherever. That's very different reality than here. The mask thing is a hard thing, and anybody who does follow the school board knows I've been on every side of that already. I've supported masks in the past, and I was one of the ones to make motions to take them off this summer. I'm just one of those people that tries to look at what's in front of me and make the best decision. Because I have kids in this school district, and because I know many people that do, and many of my friends are sitting in this audience, some on that side and some on this side. And that's just the way it is in this town and in life, right? So I kind of want to steer away from the idea of masks for a second and talk about the fact that the most important thing to me, and I think to most people, is truly that we keep our kids in school. My focus is that we need to do whatever we can to increase the likelihood that our kids do not get pushed to remote in any capacity, whether it be a classroom, whether it be, God forbid, a whole school or the whole district. I think that would push all of us, children, adult, all of us, right over the ever-loving edge. And I think that, I don't want to have to wear a mask. My kids don't want to have to wear a mask. But what everybody, I think, wants less than that is to have to go remote because we made the wrong decision. And that's what I feel sitting here. And I'm very grateful that your recommendation is only for a month, because I'm with you. If we do this mask thing, I don't want it to be for a day longer than it has to be. And with Delta streaking at us like a train, you know, it isn't here yet. You're right, it's not. But I think it's probably going to come, and it's going to hit us hard and fast. And I would rather get ahead of it and make sure it doesn't push us to remote where we're all scrambling to figure out what on earth we're going to do with our children, and how they're going to go to school and what they're going to do. I mean, does the mental health, all of those things that people say about the effect of masks, they're true to some degree for kids. You know, it's a sliding scale from don't care to I can't function. And, you know, but I think that what we all know is the worst thing is when kids are trapped at home and they cannot have the education that they need face-to-face with their teachers. I would rather have my kid in a mask with a teacher with a mask in school every day, 5 days a week with all their peers, every day more than I would like them to be at home and isolated with their siblings, you know, alone and, you know, and that's not saying I want masks. I don't want them. But do I feel they're necessary is the question that I'm sitting here wrestling with. And the answer is, right now for me, I believe the answer is proceed with caution now. Let's see how it starts, and I am in support of this recommendation because it's not for the entire year. Because it's let's start and see where these numbers go. Let's not get kicked to remote in the first 2 weeks of school. Let's keep our kids in school because we can always do more with them in school than we can if we get kicked out, and that is to me the more important issue for everybody's mental health, for everybody's health, safety in every possible realm. That is what I keep coming back to. Let's be extra cautious to make sure our kids don't get pushed to remote. That's how I feel.
Lori? I agree. I don't want to teach remote. I don't want to go remote. But I think with Shannon's option, with my option, some compromised position there, we're still going to be in a position, especially if we have assigned seats with cohorts in the classroom, we're not going to push a whole school to remote. We just won't. We can have those cohorts within the classroom, within those assigned seats, do the contact tracing as is in the original reopening plan. It's family members first. Then we can make a decision about with those in the classroom. But I don't think the majority of people are going to go without masks. I think the majority will. I think the majority will decide that's what they want to do. And I don't think we are at risk of going remote. But the good news is we can pivot on a dime. I've said we have to be flexible. I want to make that clear. If the cases go through the roof, I'm not going to stand here and say, let's just keep doing what we're doing. That's the definition of insanity. But we can pivot on a 24-hour moment.
Cinda wants to talk. Oh, Cinda?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Sorry, okay.
Just let her know.
Can she speak?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank administration and for putting together this presentation. We supported administration and the task force a couple months back, when I thought the outlook seemed much different. I think we were all very optimistic for the fall, given the vaccinations, and unfortunately, I believe things have changed somewhat. I also want to thank those that came out and those that have reached out, and those that care about the community in general. I mean, these are very, very difficult decisions, and I have every confidence that all of us are coming from the right place of wanting the most healthy and safe protocols for our children so that they can learn. And although there may be differences in opinion, even on this board, I know everybody's heart is in the same place of wanting children safe. I agree with Board Member Hardy, her thoughts, regarding, wanting to have kids in school and not right out of the gate wanting to risk the potential of having to go remote or some serious quarantines. For that reason, I do support having masks on a short-term basis. I don't want my kids to wear masks. I'm not happy that they may have to, but unfortunately, where I sit, I am not a medical doctor. I am not trained in the medical profession, and I really feel that is a key factor here. And I feel very responsible. I have to sleep at night knowing that I think I'm doing the right making the right decisions for kids in the district, just as all of my fellow board members and administration and task force leaders do as well, making those right decisions for children and the staff in the district. My hope, I feel I can get on board for 1 month to get the school year opened up safely, get everyone back every day. That's actually a really huge victory to celebrate, and something that I wouldn't want us to lose sight of for sure. And, my hope is that, it's hard to see that sometimes to think, in a couple weeks we can make a totally different decision. I would like to then pivot maybe to something that board member Peters mentioned. That seems like a very reasonable next step for me, I also, one other point that hasn't come up yet is with some of the approvals from the FDA on the vaccines, and as time goes on, the vaccinated people in our community will go up. That'll also help keep our numbers down. That's something that research is telling us as well. So I do support the proposal that's been given to us by the task force, but I can't see that being a whole year thing. I hope to God it's not, and I hope that we can take a couple weeks, get every kid back in school. Certainly, any children that have medical issues regarding wearing the mask, certainly, we would honor, of course, we'd have to a doctor's note from a child's pediatrician if there's something that makes a mask unsafe for a particular child. But again, I just wanted to be able to speak in support of that motion, but also recognize the frustration that so many parents and so many people in our community have around this very important topic.
So, Shannon?
The only thing I did not mention earlier, and none of us have really mentioned this one area, and that is busing. I do think that's an area where students need to be masked, and I think that's already. It would be when I'm talking about class, like on campus, but busing, absolutely. I think that should not be an option. That masks should be required at all times.
May I just respond to that, Shannon? That is a CDC order.
Mm-hmm.
So children, and thank you for bringing that up, children do have to be, all occupants on a bus or a van must be masked.
So, but if there's any wavering, I think we still want to kind of hold the line on that, because that is where we don't have the controls to socially distance everything else.
So now it's my turn to weigh in, and I just want to reiterate what everyone said. I really do appreciate everyone coming tonight, and I think with parents we form a partnership, right? We are all in this together, and it's a three-legged stool, and you're one of those legs, and so we have to listen to the parents and community members, and everyone here is in the best interest of their children. And 4 weeks ago, we voted 5-0 to have mask optional. And, I'm looking at what's changed. And there are 28 cases, active cases in Merrimack right now. And that's, there's 28,000 people. That's 1 in 1,000. And there's not someone under 17 years old that has COVID. So we're saying that we want to open up and be safe. And I'm going to talk to you about my personal, because everyone's talking about their personal. And I work at a high school, and I ran summer school this year. And there were 400 high school students, and masks were optional. 60% of the kids wore masks. We did not have one case of COVID in a hot school all summer. There were 1,500 students in that school district going to summer school this year, and we did not have a COVID case. And so my vote tonight is going to be what Lori suggested, that we come to a compromise and we listen and we let students, when they get to the classroom, take off their mask. And also my grandson, my daughter spoke tonight. He is special ed, and he did not learn last year. And there's a lot of anxiety and depression around his lack of learning. And I saw the anguish of that family, and I know what they went through. And so I'm going to support, parents and options.
Can I ask a question? When we're talking about universal masking for the hall, we're talking about indoor only. I just want to clarify. Yes.
That's correct.
So when they're at recess, no masks.
No masks.
Morning and lunch.
No masks when they're outside.
I just wanted to clarify.
The only thing I would ask you
And
respectfully.
mask breaks as well, correct?
I didn't hear.
Cinda asked, does this proposal include mask breaks?
Oh, yes, we'll always include mask breaks. Yes. The only thing I'd respectfully ask is we make every effort to make a decision tonight, because I think, whether you are in favor of masking or not, we just need to let people know,
Exactly.
students, parents, and staff, what we're going to do. In terms of options, Shannon, the only thing I'd say in terms of the opt-out is that, to me, that's the same as just optional masking, okay? But I understand what you're saying. I understand the difficulty of this. I would rather not rely on what other districts are doing, because what other districts are doing may not be the right thing, after they start school. So that's why I would ask that you try and come to a decision tonight, and we will abide by that decision.
I'm having just a little difficulty hearing. I'm just wondering if you could speak up a little bit, please.
Yes, I was saying, Cinda, that I would hope that the board would come to a decision tonight, because the parents and students and staff need to know sooner rather than later. That I would prefer that we not wait to see what other school districts are doing, because that doesn't mean that what they're doing is right. That the issue of opting out essentially is the same, in my view, as optional masking, which, based on my conversations with the Health and Safety Task Committee, reduces the level of safety based on our assessment. But and I guess I'm a little bit concerned about not wearing masks in the classroom, but wearing masks in passing or common areas, only because, and I certainly respect other opinions. What happens if a child spontaneously sneezes or coughs, and respiratory droplets are emitted and impact 1, 2, or more students, in front and back or side to side? So just, I need you to think about those things, and I know you have, but that's where I come to it from a little bit more of a cautious perspective.
So could I give you some data on that?
Yes.
Our school had 0 in-school transmission. 0.
Okay.
We had
Joe?
We had cases in the high school of students who got COVID when they traveled out of state over Christmas break. They did not transmit it to their fellow students in school. And like I said, our elementary students did not wear masks at all. That policy was for secondary students only. I agree it's anecdotal for anyone who says it's anecdotal, but that was for an entire 9-month school year.
So do we have a motion? Does someone want to make a motion? Janet.
I move that we accept administration's proposal to mandate masking under the conditions outlined, with a parental option for opting out.
Second.
Discussion? Shannon.
To my motion, I think that the majority of the students, I think what's going to do is minimally impact those that will choose an opt-out, because that's an effort and a decision that needs to be made. And I do think that by doing the motion this way, it establishes the culture that we are requiring masking. And really, when it comes down to it, as parents need to advocate for their individual children, they can do that in writing with the district, the intentions they have. And again, I think it's going to create an environment where we're going to have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make that environment inclusive. And I think that term was used as well, that we need to make sure our environment's inclusive that way. So, I mean, honestly, I share the concerns that you outlined, Bill. I really do. I've heard Dr. Page on a number of occasions. I'm also concerned that we're going to have a cultural divide in our schools if we do If we have the kids going home to parents who are so passionately feeling that things aren't right, and I don't want them to feel that they're sending their kids to school in a place that won't welcome them. And that's been my concern hearing the testimony tonight. We need to feel that these kids are welcomed. But in the same token, I'm going to be very direct and clear. Because when it comes down to it, if we are finding that this does create the environment to which we are trying so desperately to avoid, that we've been talking about, things will change in a heartbeat. Emergency school board meetings and change. And your opt-out plans, we would have to reconsider. So I really think that, again, if it becomes a place of transmission, we would have to take a very serious second look at things.
Okay.
But that's how I came up with my motion.
Jenna?
So I definitely understand why you want to go that direction. I agree with Mr. Olson. I do believe that is essentially a mask optional approach, which I again think is a little risky. I think it continues to kind of create the us versus them thing in the schools, because there it all is there. And if that's the way we go, then that's the way we go. I totally just lost my train of thought. It's been a long night.
It's been a night.
Okay. Honest to God, I had a point, but I don't remember what it was. So come back to me.
So I was just going to say, so this summer when it was optional masking, there was really no divide. I mean, it was really amazing. And when I say it was 60-40, 60% of the students wearing masks, 40% not, that's just, an observation. I don't really have real data in that, but it worked. It worked. People were very respectful both ways. Lori. Jenna, I think Jenna's got her thought back.
Yeah, before it leaves my head again. So my thing was, so tonight, again, so grateful for you all to come out. But as a school board member, it was really kind of almost, I don't want to say scary is too strong a word, but like there was a lot of hostility and anger based on what people were going to do. And my fear is that if we go that direction and then we pick some data point, I mean, we presented data points tonight and there was hostility and directed towards us. I don't know that there is a point of data that would convince the people that chose to opt out. Like when we come back and say, sorry, we've hit this data point that now we feel is one that we're going to take that option away, I think we're going to be right back to where we are tonight. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean that disrespectfully. What I mean is I don't think that's going to help things. This obviously isn't a discussion, but I think if we were to ask many of them, they wouldn't say there is going to be that time when they decide they want to put the masks back on. So what the fear for me is that we do that, and all that's going to do is make things worse later. You know what I mean? Make that more of a contentious situation. Take the contentiousness that everybody is feeling now on both sides and push it off down the road where it could possibly be worse because, there still won't be agreement on whether what is safe or what isn't safe or, who has a right to say who's, that's my concern if we do that.
Lori?
Two things. First of all, to Shannon's point, the opt-out puts the onus on the parents. It's not the child who's coming into class saying, I'm mask optional. Parents, you have to parent your children. And that's what I like about that option. To Jenna's point, I understand. It's not my first rodeo of contentious meetings in my life. It's what we get paid the big bucks for. But I think if we're going to go this route, please hear me. Things may change. We may not like the change, but things will change. This board tonight is declaring, and we have all summer, we may have to make a different decision depending on what happens. And I think where some of our frustration lies is last year we wanted to make policies for the whole year so that we knew what to expect. We found that we can't do that. We have to make policies as data changes. And so I think we can declare that in a way that maybe it lessens the contention if we have to change.
Okay, and go ahead, Jenna.
I just have one last concern.
Sure.
The mask optional approach puts the responsibility on teachers to enforce that on some level. Do you know what I'm saying? To put the responsibility into the teachers' laps of making sure they know who doesn't have to wear a mask, but who does have to then wear a mask, because if they don't have the permission, then it has to be enforced. So that is something that becomes the responsibility of the teacher, and that is my concern.
Okay.
For teachers.
Okay. All right, no, everyone needs to be respectful. That's what listen, I really thought people were very respectful. I know that there was a couple moments, but I appreciated that we had this dialogue, and this is right, what's happening right now is happening nationally. I mean, this is, we're talking about really tough stuff. So I'm going to call the question. I think Shannon made the motion. We had a second. So now we're going to take the vote. So it's going to be a roll call vote. Lori Peters.
In favor.
Jenna.
Not opposed.
Cinda. Cinda.
Is anyone home there?
Shannon.
I'm in favor.
Lori, in favor. So we're still waiting for Cinda.
The motion carries regardless.
The motion carries. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the second review of Title IX, sexual harassment policy and grievance policies.
Yes. May I just say that one of the things we need to do is rescind the existing mask policy?
Okay.
Jenna, or Cinda, are you there?
Yeah, I had just disconnected. Probably the worst time.
Yeah, we voted on Shannon's motion, 3-1.
Shannon, can you make
Okay.
a motion to rescind the last mass policy bill?
I mean, I heard it right till you started taking the vote.
We're just replaces. She said we don't have to do.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
All right.
fine.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I also didn't get a chance to speak to it. But, okay.
Okay, so I know there was a question, Bill, you wanted to see if we need to rescind the actual written policy in our policy manual for the temporary mask policy. We did not put that on our agenda, so
Okay.
we probably
We'll
can't
put it on the
address
next
it tonight.
agenda.
Yes.
So now we're moving to the second review of Title IX, sexual harassment policy and grievance.
Can I make a motion, please? May I make a motion?
Yes, you can.
Can I make a motion that masks should be worn, as Lori initially suggested, as children are transferring between classes?
So can I ask a clarifying question? So what you're saying is the mask optional only applies to when in the classroom. Outside of the classroom, mask mandatory is in effect. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm asking for month one.
I would second that motion.
Okay. Does anyone want to speak on that motion?
We would have to definitely clarify that. The teachers would have to, everybody get their masks on as we transport classrooms. And we also need to clarify that that's only within the buildings, as we said earlier.
Yeah, I'd like it to be as Lori Peters has suggested. I feel like as part of being a compromise.
So, I'm sorry. May I?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so to clarify, what you're saying is take those who opt out of wearing masks and only have the opt-out be for classroom time.
Correct.
Which is the majority of the day, right? I mean, they're not walking around the building most of the day.
And the high transmission time, those few minutes.
So
several times a day.
Yes, you're asking us to amend the opt-out for classroom time only.
Correct.
So do we want to take a vote on that? Lori?
Well, I haven't finished discussing it yet.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I rush sometimes, I don't mean to.
So what I had said originally was mainly for the elementary. 7th through 12th has the option for vaccination. And I think our focus and a lot of what we heard tonight was for the little ones.
So my motion would be for all grades, particularly in the high school and the higher grades. That's where the class sizes are bigger and there's less social distancing and there's also more exposure to other children. So I feel like if we could do that one mitigating protocol just during transition times, once kids are seated in their assigned seats or, in their seats in their class, that then they could be that the motion that passed earlier could be the opt.
For month 1 is what you're saying.
Yeah.
May I just get some clarification? Is the intent of the motion that students in the classroom, only those whose parents have requested they opt out would not wear the mask, or we just leave it just optional? Or is it on an opt-out, specific opt-out request basis?
I believe the way Cinda has the motion is that it would be for those students who have opted out, they will be required to wear a mask during transition time in the hallways. It does not address students who wear a mask all day.
So if would you mind? I don't normally, I don't normally get into this piece, but so you'd have, so I understand, so what we're trying to operationalize is, so the opt-out that the people who were here before who just left is now switching to classroom only and not the hallway. And so they went away feeling one way, and now it's changing a little bit.
Well, I mean, they left. The meeting's not over. They left before the meeting was over.
Correct.
I mean,
that's all I just want to say.
I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but
I know.
mean we can't not entertain a motion because people chose to leave a meeting. I mean, and I think that we're not asking for much. I think what we're asking for is, when the kids walk down to the lunchroom, okay, kids, put your masks on because you're going to be in the hallway. They get down to the lunchroom, they're going to take it off to eat. Hey, we're going to art, pop your mask on. But if it's mask optional, the majority of their day is in their classroom, and if their parents opt out, then their masks are off. When they're learning, when they're walking in the hallway, their mask is on. So while I feel that some of those people probably would be upset by that, that's not how we run our meetings. We don't stop doing business because people leave or come in, or we can't do that.
That's correct. I just wanted to bring it up as a point, that's all.
Yeah, no, I
And
understand.
and thank you for the clarity, because I was a little bit confused there for a moment in terms of a student's ability to take their mask off. What I heard, and I just wanted to make sure, was if their parent requested an opt-out in the classroom.
Right.
Okay.
So basically, the opt-out would be a classroom opt-out, not
That's
an
correct.
overall
That's
opt-out. They
correct.
would still have to wear a mask in the hallway.
Right.
And the other thing I want to say, too, about the people leaving is Cinda's remote, so she doesn't really know that half the room just left. So she made her motion. She's not aware of the
Right.
fact that people aren't here.
And I was looking for the same kind of clarification that Bill was talking about, as opposed to the opt-out doesn't apply towards hallway traffic back and forth.
And those students in a classroom whose parents did not opt them out are expected to wear a mask. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that
That's right.
clarification.
And maybe things change after 1 month.
Yeah,
That would be the hope.
This whole entire thing is for month 1, right?
So
Mhm.
we have a motion on the floor. So I think, are we ready to call the question? Okay, Lori?
In favor?
Jenna?
In favor?
In favor.
And I'm opposed.
What about Cinda?
Cinda? She made the motion.
In favor.
401.
410.
410.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Bill, now we're moving on to the second review of the Title IX sexual harassment
Yes.
policy.
First of all, may I just say, this is one of the most difficult decisions that every school board across the country right now is facing. And I absolutely applaud you for the debate that you put into it and the thoughts you put into it. And we will implement what you just passed, and we'll do our best to make it work. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Olson, for your thoughtful approach.
You know, everyone in the room has the same interest, and that's protecting children, protecting staff. So the second reading, you know, there is no other information for me to offer on the second reading other than, you know, you can sometimes vote to waive the second reading, and we continue with public comment period, and then pass this policy at the next meeting. So there's really nothing in particular that needs to be stated. Okay.
Okay.
Just a question, Bill?
Yes.
Is this on the website for review?
I believe so.
Okay,
I'll
then-
check first thing tomorrow morning, but generally
Okay,
it is.
as long as that means the 2 weeks of public testimony have been
Yes.
viable, and that's fine. Okay?
Okay, so now we're under new business, reopening schools, frequently asked questions.
Kim and a group that she has been working with, along with the Health and Safety Task Force, working on that, and that will be posted as part of the task force updates to our website very, very shortly. As we know, we want to get that out to the parents. That was something that was requested a while back. And please know that we've been working on it each week, each day of each week.
Thank you. The September meeting update, right now we're looking at September 7th, which is the Tuesday after Labor Day. Is that agreeable with everyone?
Historically, what we've done.
Okay, very good.
Okay. The next
Oh,
new.
Lori, just one thing. I'm not available that night. I'm just.
you're not?
I am not, but that doesn't mean you can't meet. Just means I'm not available.
That's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Then the next new business is the request for one additional sixth grade teaching position.
A couple of weeks ago, I informed you of the enrollments at the elementary level, expressed concern over the numbers at the grade 6 level at the James Mastacola Upper Elementary School. We have had a couple of additional enrollments since that point in time, and I would like your approval to be able to hire an additional teacher. We do have certainly a sufficient amount of available funds based on the number of staff that have left at higher salaries and the new hires at lower salaries. So we can very readily cover the cost of this. I think it's the best thing for us to do from an educational perspective.
Shannon?
I know that we covered that a couple of weeks ago. The one thing I would have to say is the position has not been posted yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the other thing is, right now, you're in a hot marketplace. So if we do accept this, I would just recommend that we waive the 2-week rule and vote on this tonight.
Thank you.
I agree.
So I make a motion that we move forward with the hiring of a 6th grade teacher.
Waiving the 2-week rule?
Waiving the 2-week.
Then I will second it with your waiver. Thank you.
Okay. Lori?
In favor.
Cinda?
In favor.
Jenna?
In favor.
Shannon?
In favor.
Lori? In favor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so then we move on to the public and non-public minutes, approval of the August 9th, 2021 minutes. Shannon? I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Wait,
Oh, we got a roll call.
you have to roll call.
Oh, roll call. Lori?
In favor.
Jenna?
Abstain.
Cinda?
In favor.
Shannon?
In favor.
Lori?
Sorry, in favor.
In favor. So the June 29th, 2021 non-public meeting. Request to approve them. Shannon? Second?
Second.
All those, okay, in favor? Okay. Roll call. Lori?
In favor.
Cinda?
In favor.
Jenna?
Abstain.
Shannon?
In favor.
Lori Rothhaus in favor. Educator Administrator nominations.
Thank you. I'm happy to be making these nominations because school's around the corner. So we have some new hires. Brianna Goodrich Bundy, English teacher at Merrimack High School. Lindsay Belmont, special ed teacher at Merrimack Middle School. Clarissa McHale, world language teacher at the middle school. Teresa Perrone, preschool teacher at Reeds Ferry School. Leah Sutherland, school counselor at Merrimack High School. And for administrators, Lori Livy, assistant principal at Reeds Ferry School.
Shannon?
I move we accept as presented.
I'd second that. All those in favor, we'll start with Lori Peters.
In favor.
Cinda?
In favor.
Jenna?
In favor.
Shannon?
In favor.
In favor.
And may I just say, with respect to the last name on the list, our HR director, I'd like to talk with the chair sometime in the next day or two to see if we can schedule a non-public session to discuss this one so that we can act on it sooner rather than later.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you, and I'll work with you, Bill, to coordinate that.
We're moving on to committee reports. Okay. Correspondence. Shannon?
I received one, the board received a series of them. I'm usually the chair, so I don't know if you're going to cover those where we all got copied, but I did get one that was not sent to the entire board, and that was regarding, support. It basically said that they support whatever decision this board makes tonight for the best, interest of the students. However, they would like there to be an effort made where there would be the opportunity for all students to be temperature checked, because those temperature, like forehead checkers are so readily available. It's happening. I will say that I know because in my building, we have scanners that we walk in, they scan our face to check our temperature and clear us to go in the building. But just being able to have temperature checkers that all kids get checked, as they arrive at school, when you get to the classroom, etc. So it's the best diagnostic according to the constituent, and I totally understand.
Thank you. And I had one correspondence of a teacher who was asking the board to really consider making mask optional for special ed students, especially students that are hearing impaired. Comments? Oh, Jen, did you have something?
Yeah, I had two that came just to me as well, and both were in regards to the mask debate, various different positions on that issue.
Lori?
I had one come to me also about a student who's hearing impaired, and that it's not about her wearing a mask, it's that she cannot see the mouths of her teacher and the students in the classroom, and that's a major concern for her.
Please know that we will work with the administrators. We've discussed this certainly in the past about making special accommodations for students with certain disabilities.
Thank you.
And Bill, this is Cinda. To your point, I think, every parent should feel free to speak out to the administrator of their building for specific needs of their children. We want to make sure that their needs are met as it relates to their learning and their disability, in addition to everything else. So our administrators are there in building leadership to help parents navigate some of these challenges.
Comments? Shannon?
I just have one in response to someone earlier that talked about we should be talking about the crappy water, so I'll not use the other word, but I thought it was pretty good. But regarding that, I just want to remind everyone that when we realized the problem that we had with water in Merrimack and the fact that we were not going to wait for our Merrimack Village District to do anything about that there are filtration systems in every school in this district, and the water is PFOA free, And that's because we took a proactive stand years ago, so we would not have to face the waiting game to bring safe water into our schools. So just as that was brought up, I just wanted to remind families at home that the safest water you're going to find in Merrimack is in the Merrimack School District buildings right now.
I think we have a water warrior here too, so that's good news. Okay, public comments on agenda items. Go to the mic, name, address.
Brian Trant, it's 419 South Babusick Lake Road. We just walked out here a moment ago. I was under the impression that it was masks optional. Was I right in that?
Yes.
Anybody? And then
No,
as soon as we
it's
got
mask
down-
mandate, parent opt out.
Opt out.
Right.
Okay, so my daughter won't have to wear a mask if I opt out.
She will on the bus, and she would, and there was another motion in
To do
hallways.
it in between classes, which
Yep.
you waited for all of us to leave
I-
before
that was-
she came back on the phone from Michigan, where she wasn't here earlier to be involved with the vote on it. And now she's all of a sudden involved when all of us leave the room. And you motion something through with a locked door downstairs, and we're hearing it on social media at the bottom of the stairwell. It's like you waited for us to leave, and then you push through your little thing to make sure you can jam that thing on my daughter's face. It's not your call. It's not. You see my 8-year-old come home from school in tears with pimples all over her face and a rash because she's had that nasty thing on her face all day long. It's not your kid. You don't have to deal with that. Neither do you. Do you have children?
Okay,
in
no,
the
wait,
school
wait,
system?
wait, wait, wait.
How many?
Wait, hello. We only address to the
Well,
board. We
she's
address.
addressing me, so
Okay,
she's going to
please-
do what she's going to
please
get it
address-
back.
Please address to the board, okay?
I'm addressing to you. You guys
And
seem crooked as the day is long, is what it
No,
seems like.
I want to tell you what happened. She didn't see you leave. She did not see you leave.
She wasn't even
And
on the phone. You couldn't
she
even
made
get her to
it.
vote
She
for
made
a
a
quorum.
motion, and the majority of the board agreed with her motion. That's what happened.
This is the most corrupt, ridiculous I've ever seen in my life. It really is. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves.
Okay.
Evan Fulmer, 5A Woodbury. One thing that seems to me to be a fairly reasonable option, and in all this, it didn't seem like the teachers were taking it at all. I have to admit, the idea or the situation for some special needs children was not something that had really occurred to me in terms of masking. But it would seem to me, and my wife says she has mentioned this maybe to Jenna, clear masks for teachers. That way the students, especially the younger students, can see what their teacher is saying, and it should be something that the district should provide. Now, it also seems to me like we have thrown out erring on the side of caution. My wife and I had tickets to the Worcester Red Sox for Sunday. Now, they could have played that game. Henry was nothing, but they erred on the side of caution. The governor of Massachusetts basically said, we got a hurricane coming, we got to be careful. Made sense. I wasn't happy, but I stayed home. So that's the way it went, you know. And it seems like this opt-out thing is a terrible idea. And the teachers are going to have an additional thing. Someone earlier said that the teachers were so concerned about, you know, are the guards up? They've got to do this, they've got to do that, and they didn't have time to teach. Now they're going to have to worry about who has to wear a mask and who doesn't. And that seems like totally unnecessary for educators to have to do that. So it just seems like we are throwing out, erring on the side of caution. You know, it's a month. It's a month. And my granddaughter is 15, and wearing a mask is something she hates. But she doesn't come home with pimples. I don't quite understand the problem here. Anyway, again, clear masks seem to be an easy solution for teachers, which would really help a lot of special needs students.
Thank you.
Let me just say that Merrimack, along with many other school districts, have provided certain staff members with masks with the clear panels.
Next.
Jen Motel, 27 Alley Drive. So I just want to say I don't really have a dog in the fight because I have high schoolers. They've all been vaccinated. We're all vaccinated and no comorbidities. So I'm not really, like, you know, I saw the points that were made. My heart broke for people with IEPs and a child with autism. And just anxiety. So I understood that. I also understand the other side where we've got the Delta variant coming in, and it is a scary thing, you know, for a lot of people. So I just want to say that, you know, I understand both sides, but I also want to just mention that I was really, really, really impressed with how the school board and administrators handled this, how you debated respectfully, you disagreed respectfully, you talked about it, and you made your choices. And you set a really good example for the town of Merrimack, for everyone in here. And I really appreciate it. And I just want to say that I'm really proud that you guys are representing us. So, and then one other point, I heard you say something about the socio-emotional learning program. Is it the Choose Love program that you're using? Sorry.
We use Second Step, but we also do trauma-informed school teaching.
I'll be in contact about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca Worst again, 12 Kramer Hill Road. Well, I first want to thank you. I know this is a difficult decision for all school boards. I also work for a school district and am in the field. Right now, the largest high school in the state is mask optional at this time, Pinkerton Academy. They have not made the decision to mandate masks. But I do implore you, I appreciate you guys compromising. I want to say that first off. I think that I do appreciate that. But prior to our next school board meeting, I implore all of you to reach out to the mask expert that I spoke about, a senior industrial hygienist. They are the mask experts. They are going to tell you what masks work and what don't work and how they protect against COVID, or actually don't protect against COVID. So I would really appreciate, as representatives of this town, if you guys would do that research and hear from one of them, because they train the pediatricians, they train OSHA. They're the ones that are the experts on this, and they're the ones that are saying masks don't work. So please do your due diligence for this town. And I will say it again. We got COVID in a sterile environment. We were at Elliott Hospital when my son had an emergency appendectomy. We had masks on. The Elliott operating room, a sterile environment. They always wear masks. Had a COVID outbreak. We got COVID. I got COVID. I brought it home to my 7-year-old son who got COVID. And we were living with my parents at the time, who are 70 and 67. They also got COVID. We were in a sterile environment. So I appreciate this board making a compromise, but please reach out and do some more research about masks, because my fear is that you're not really looking at the whole picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Final comments. No, that's you. No, go ahead.
My wife wants to speak.
Okay, good.
I'm not going to take a spot if she's going to speak.
No,
I
you
won't
can,
do
I'm
that.
just
I
wondering
won't.
how many. Go ahead.
All right. So,
1, 2, 3.
Larry Metaxtos, 38 Breck Drive. Just a couple things. First of all, thank you guys all for being, for listening and for tolerating all the noise and all that happened. For those that agree and don't agree, there's a lot of people in here that share different views. And, we try to teach our children to be respectful. And I think it starts with us showing by example, which as a parent I fail quite often, but I still try. But a couple things, the opt-out, I don't quite get the opt-out. So, and it might just be me having a difficult time. Why not have an opt-in? If you're going to put an opt-out, meaning by default it's wear mask, unless you don't want to wear a mask, you have to opt out. You're only asking for a lot of letters, hundreds or thousands of letters coming in saying, I want my kid out, I want my kid out, I want to opt out. Why not just have it opt-in? I mean, if it's going to give the same end result. Those that want to wear a mask can say, I want to opt in, I want my child to wear a mask, and my child's going to, okay, great, you can opt in. Why should we opt out? I don't understand what the differentiator there is, and if you could explain it to me, that would be great. I may and may not get it, but I'd like you to try to explain to me what the difference is and why it's better to have an opt-out. By default, we're locking you down unless you choose not to. Why not just keep it open? If a family wants their children to wear masks, that child can come to school wearing a mask. It's silly. That's kind of like you get those things in the mail. We're going to charge you this unless you tell us no. Well, don't even charge me because I don't want it. I'm not asking for it. So I'm looking for a bi-directional here if we can have that. If we're not allowed to.
No, we're not allowed to. We're just listening.
Okay.
We're just
All
listeners.
right. Well, I'd love to hear something about that at some point.
If you stay after the meeting, I'll be glad to talk to you on the side.
Okay, that'd be great. And then the other thing was just to you, Everett, and by the way, thank you for everything you guys have all said. So one of the things you were saying is about the kids being resilient. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. You don't hear a lot from the kids, hopefully because, like me and my wife, we teach our children to be respectful. Whether you agree with the teacher or anything at the school, you are to be quiet. You can bring it home to mom and dad and let us voice your opinion. You don't speak up and talk back to the teachers or the staff. Hopefully, everybody's doing the same thing with their children. So you're not going to hear my kids say anything about not wanting to wear the masks. And as far as being resilient, they are and they're not. They hate it. You know, they're not going to tell you because we've told them. Watch, you know, you don't speak to your elders that way. So hopefully, you know, I still don't get the opt-in, so I'd love to talk to you about it, Jan. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, I'm Sandra Metaxatos, 38 Breck Drive, my first ever school board meeting, and you guys were really, really patient. So thank you for hearing. I love robust debate. That's why we love democracy. One is a question which I guess you cannot answer, but maybe afterwards somebody can. Who is the person that we would write this email to? Is it like the principal? Is it the superintendent? Who are we reaching out to if we want to opt out? So that was just kind of one technical thing. But then my other comment was, Everett, because you made several references to conversations with pediatricians and their observations and their statements that we slowed the spread or mitigated the spread because of the masks. And I guess the question that keeps coming into my mind was, how do they know? Everybody was required to wear a mask. So I would be willing to volunteer my kids to be part of the control group to not wear masks, and then you'd have a comparison, and they would willingly be part of the control group. So, because in any scientific experiment, you need a control group. You can't just say, everybody wear masks, so we know that the masks slow the spread, you know? So, I don't know, that's just what kept crossing my mind. Another option.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandra Peterson, 21 Carriage Lane. I totally did not expect to speak tonight. I speak well, but not in front of crowds. I'm in the middle on everything. I work in a different school district. I work in a low poverty school. I wish our children were taught to respect us, and we're not. I'm, kicked, spit at, spoken to, sworn at on a number of times every day. I appreciate parents having choice. I don't really understand the opt-out on the education side, and we disagree and we're best friends, but that's a lot of paperwork and a lot of responsibility to put onto the teacher to know who is and who isn't, and what do you do when a substitute comes into the classroom, if we can get a substitute. How are they gonna know who has an opt-in, who has an opt-out? Where is the not the HIPAA, but a lot of times the substitutes don't know who has an IEP, who doesn't have an IEP, what the ins and outs are of the classroom. And I think with an opt-out, you're just putting a lot of responsibility on the teachers and a lot of unneeded paperwork. I agree with options. Myself, I'm gonna wear a mask. I think I was healthier all winter long. Then again, I was remote, then I was in the school, and then I was remote, so you can't really go by that. I did, however, have her 2 children all winter long, and we were okay. I agree with parent choice. I just wish you'd rethink the opt-out, because that's a lot of unnecessary work that doesn't have to happen.
Hi, Finley Rothaus, 14 Kittredge Lane. I was here earlier this evening to support my daughter who came to speak to you, and then I went home afterwards, and I sat down and was watching you on TV, and I saw the foul-up that happened and wanted to come down and speak to you about that. I knew a bunch of people had left, and of course what happens, you have people who believe everything's a conspiracy, and you're now to blame for the door being locked, which it was, and I only got in because these gentlemen were trying to come in, and I have a key, so I was able to get in the door. All that being said, I participate with a group that has occasional phone calls coming into their meetings. I know it's allowed by state law, but I'm going to try and prevent it at our meetings from ever again happening, because what happened tonight was totally unfortunate, and then again, you have now to deal with those people who believe that it was all on purpose. So I would encourage you to contemplate, if you can get rid of that, don't ever do that again, because that's what I'm doing on my side. So thank you very much.
Still Jen Page, still Nichols Lane. Lori, I appreciate the data that you presented. I do think that Delta is currently the predominant strain in the community. I tried to Google where I had seen that. There is an article from the middle of July that said New England had 40% of the circulating strain was COVID, and that it had gone up from 3% only a month earlier, and I believe currently it's much higher, but that's neither here nor there. I think mask optional versus opt-out is taking a hair and splitting it. It's mask optional. You've made it mask optional, and now it's only in the classroom you've made it mask optional, but you've made it mask optional. I agree. Why put it on the teachers to try and figure out whose parents opted out, opted in? You've made it mask optional in the classroom. Call it what it is. You went with Lori's original proposal, which is fine. But I agree. I would ditch the whole opt-in thing. I think that's a nightmare.
Chuck Mower, 4 Depot Street. I think we all have a better understanding of what COVID fatigue is. And we're talking about a school district, and as much as people have been focusing on the policies regarding COVID, one swallow does not a summer make. We have a good deal more going on in our school district that needs professional attention and administrative judgment. I particularly wanted to welcome Everett to Merrimack. I've not had an opportunity to meet you before. I am the chairman of the School District Budget Committee, and that's probably a little bit more important than health and safety issues that we discussed here this evening. We need to fund an entire operation. The Merrimack School District is the largest employer in Merrimack and contributes mightily to the local economy as a result of that. We've had some difficulty in the past trying to meet the very tight schedules that are involved between the school board making its budgetary decisions and then coming to the Budget Committee, and that little window of time doesn't leave us very much. So I'm hoping that we can have some budget discussions sooner rather than later. I have to tell you how wonderful Matt Chevenel has been over the years relative to giving us a thorough representation of the budget. But time is always of the essence, as I'm sure you well know. And one of the things that the Budget Committee would like to discuss with the school board and the administration is the ability to capture more of our budget surplus. We've been running a surplus anywhere between $3 and $5 million, which sounds like an awful lot to a lot of people, but again, when you're the largest employer in Merrimack, it takes some very parsimonious administration to turn over a surplus like that. But when we do, it would be nice if we could capture more of that through improved capital investment program initiatives. It's very difficult for us to save money, but this is one way that we can save what the voters have already approved as an appropriation, so that we're not losing that to the general fund of the community. It's just a way of, I think, tightening up our ship a little bit. And it will allow us to address a lot of things that over the last 15 or 20 years have been deferred to another time that never appeared. So I'm very much hoping that we can have those kinds of discussions earlier rather than later. So welcome to
Paradise.
Merrimack. This is a wonderful community. I'm actually very excited to see people come out to a meeting. I hope that they will realize that there is a much deeper and profound explanation for many of the things that they are curious about or have anxiety about. The best government is the government that is closest to us. And that is self-government here in Merrimack. Just regular citizens taking the leap into the arena and running for public office and suffering all the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. I have myself experienced a good deal of that and still remain a stalwart supporter of Merrimack and our ability to find our own way and tell our own story. And I think that the school district has a wonderful future ahead of it under your stewardship and the other stalwart participants in the superintendent's office of many years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, do we have one more speaker? Do we have another speaker? I'm sorry. All right, please come, sorry.
Hi, my name is Natalie Reyes Silverman. I'm still at London Court. Except not right now. But, okay, sorry. I just want to touch on a few things. The opt-out is definitely confusing. I mean, I do understand it to a certain degree, but it is a lot of paperwork, and I'm here for optional, so that is saying something. I just want to, touch on a few things. This isn't my first pandemic. I come from, I'm only 26, so I don't know if everybody doesn't remember 2009 when we were in a level 6 pandemic called the swine flu, where more children died, more children were hospitalized, and I never got taken out of school. 60 to 85% of people who were hospitalized were under the age of 65. 9,000 people died in the US from swine flu. Most of them were young people. Millions of children were hospitalized. That's not an exaggeration. That is right off the CDC. I know the people who support the mask mandate love the CDC. Please give it a gander. You will find a lot of really interesting information that's not the news telling you things. I highly suggest that people take their time, because there's some people in here that don't have children in the Merrimack School District that have a lot of it, to look up your own stuff. At this point, it's not safe to say that we can just trust our government. It's not safe to say that we can just trust the experts, because the experts still don't even know what the heck they're talking about. There's been so much mixed information coming and going for the last 18 months. It is unreal. And I want you all to know that the swine flu pandemic was only a year long, and those people who died in the first 9 months of it. Please, if you do not believe me, I highly suggest you look that up. I wore a mask in March. I wore a mask. In March, when this first came out, I was one of the people who wore a mask, while all of the people who want masks happening now were telling me that I was an idiot for wearing it. Well, here we are, and more information has come out. And I feel badly that we're making this a moral and like a selfish thing, because it's not. It's my body, my choice across the board. And I took my child out of Merrimack schools. So I'm here to fight for all of the kids who I see my daughter cheer with every single day, or twice a week, sometimes 4 times a week. And they don't even wear masks. And they're right next to each other all the time. And they're going hard, and they're sweating, and they're disgusting, because they're on Gibson Field, and it's gross up there. So I'm just saying that we really need to clarify that opt-in, opt-out, because that just sounds like optional with a lot of paperwork. That seems ridiculous. So.
Thank you. Okay, are we all set? I don't want to cut anyone off. Oh, we got one more.
Tiffany Castellucci Trant, still at 419 South Pabusick. First, I apologize for losing my cool the first time I was up here. It's very frustrating, very, very frustrating to watch an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old go out the door every day and come in the house every day when they have to have a mask. When the last thing my daughter is worried about before she walks out the door for school is not forgetting her lunchbox, but it's forgetting her mask, okay? My child, 8 years old, she was 7 at the time, contracted COVID in December, before the entire pandemic ever was even imagined by anybody, before anybody knew what was going on, okay? She had COVID in December. Her doctor's office refused to see her. I suffered with my daughter with a 104.7 temperature for 6 days straight, with no help from any medical professional, okay? No pediatrician. My suggestion given to me was, oh, she'll be fine. Just wait for it to break. Don't worry about it. Well, when should I worry about it? When it's 105? Yes, they said. Really? From my knowledge, 105 could start cooking your internal organs, okay, and do a lot of damage. My daughter is 8 years old now. She's thriving. She loves going to extracurricular sports. She loves being with her friends. She loves being with her friends. And if it's a matter of her having to put a bag over her head to be with her friends and play because you say she has to, that is what these children are willing to do. Because these children are at the age of pleasing us. They want to please us. They want to pleasure us. They want to hear, you did such a good job. And we are here trying to protect our kids from things that we don't want them to experience or we don't want them to do because we know it's affecting them. You may not see it on the outside, but we see it on the inside. When my kids come home and walk through that door every day, you know what the first thing they do? I hate this mask. I hate this mask. And like everybody else has said, they're breaking out everywhere. They have trouble breathing. My daughter has severe, severe allergies. Last year in April, she asked to get a tissue to blow her nose. Her teacher sent her to the nurse's office, and guess what? She was quarantined for 10 days. Not because she was sick, not because she tested positive for COVID, because her teacher decided it was in her best interest not to give her a tissue to blow her nose, but to send her to the nurse's office and to get sent home and quarantined for 10 days. And for that 10 days, you know what kind of education she got? Nothing. You know who contacted me? Nobody. You know what happened the night she got sent home from that day in school when I was met with the principal and the nurse at the door, acting like my kid had the plague, shoving her out? Oh, well, I'll talk to you at the parent-teacher tonight when I go there with your, when I'm on there with your teacher. Okay. Well, when we tried to address her being quarantined, do you know what we were told? We don't want you to waste all of this time that you have to talk about how well your daughter's doing with this quarantine. You know what they did? Nobody ever contacted me. My daughter was out of school for 3 weeks. You know why? Because after her quarantine was over, school vacation started. I addressed it to the principal 4 times. You know what happened? Nothing. So this is what happens when our kids get sent home from school because people think they may have COVID when she didn't, okay? Because we had to go and get our panel tested because it just so happened our doctor was on vacation. But these are not, it's not just my child. It's a lot of children. And there's not a set plan in place. And for you guys to say optional, and then all of us to walk out of the room, and then it be changed one last second because somebody wasn't present during a phone call, shouldn't be us suffering again.
So I gave you a lot of time, so your time limit is really up, but thank you, and thank you for apologizing. That was really big of you. Thank you.
It would be nice of you guys to consider our feelings too, not just the mess. It's both sides. We should all start working together instead of against each other. Everybody has their own opinions on everything, so allow that opinion to be held by everybody instead of just one making
I think we
theirs.
really did that tonight, so thank you.
Hi, Heather Callahan, 5 King Henry Court. I just want to say I do appreciate the impossibility of your situation here, and all of this is. You can't make everybody happy. I know everybody has their different views that are very strongly held. I don't know, like, it almost seems like there's like a power struggle, like who is in charge of making these decisions for the children? Is it the parents? Is it you guys? And I see that you're trying to respect everybody's voice and opinion. I will also say that I have heard a lot of rumbling of like taking kids out of the district. I don't know how many might go, but parents will only put up with so much. I don't know like how that would affect funding and everything, but that might be something to keep in mind also.
Thanks. You. Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in, oh, we have to do
Roll call.
Roll call. Lori?
In favor.
Cinda?
In favor.
Jenna?
In favor.
Shannon?
In favor.
Lori, in favor. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.